Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another live stream. We have the Game Week 6 live stream. Lots of wildcards active, lots of fixture swings as well. And it feels like, sadly, and I say sadly because I'm normally on the negative end of it, it might be quite a swingy week. It feels like lots of players being heavily sold, lots of players being brought in. There is some divergence in terms of wildcards versus not. So, just pray. I think that's it. Just hope that you get some positive variance and hope that it goes well for you. But do let me know what you're tuning in from. Let me know what you're doing right now. And remove the hat, reveal the egg. God, at least buy me a drink first before you start asking me to take my clothes off. I could reveal the egg if you really want me to. Morning, brother. Morning, Chai. I will definitely see you on Monday, but maybe see you tomorrow as well. Good morning, boss man. Good morning, Direct. Better than Erect. Hey. Sorry. Get demonetized within the opening 2 minutes. Claudette, good morning, Ross. Good morning. Good morning, Immortal Technique. Raya versus Alison Becker. Yeah, you could go Alison with the Raya news. We will talk about Raya, of course, throughout. Watching from New Zealand. Big up New Zealand. New Zealand's a place I really want to go to. I feel like it's an underrated place. Morning from Vancouver. Another place I would like to visit. Tuning in from Qatar, another everyone's just tuning in from places that I would like to visit and I've not yet. So, big up. Hi Ross from Cameroon. Big up, Clive. These are all much more exotic places than we're at as of right now. And people will say this isn't cold, but it is 6 degrees right now. Oh, yeah. Oh, God. The green screen didn't like that. 6 degrees. A little bit chilly, which is why I've got the jacket on today. Bomber jacket at 9 a.m. I know, well, I'm leaving straight after the stream. I'm actually off to Manchester this weekend, courtesy of Manchester United, to watch the Manchester United versus Spurs game, which is pretty cool. So Pickle and I are going in a fancy bougie box to go and watch Man United batter Spurs 5-0. Probably won't happen. Anyway, so thank you for being here as always. We're going to have a lovely stream ahead. Let me show you what I'm currently working with my team. So if you've missed any of the content, I did opt not to wildcard. So I don't think there's much that would happen today unless we get news that Salah's out or something like that would force me into a wildcard right now because the team is good. And I won't have any slander of my team. It is solid. I've got triple Liverpool. If Jota starts, which we're hoping he will, it's a really solid triple up there. Salah captain this week probably isn't quite as good as Haaland, given how good Haaland's been. But he's certainly not a bad alternative. Gabriel and Saka already in place. Haven't had to use a transfer to bring in any Arsenal. Rodgers and Watkins against Ipswich, I think are really, really solid options, especially Watkins this week. I'm happy to have. And then Calvert-Lewin, Eze, Henderson all in the same game. I'm just hoping that one or maybe two of those get me points. If Crystal Palace win 3-0 or something and Calvert-Lewin blanks, then great. If Everton score loads of goals, then hopefully Calvert-Lewin's involved. So I'm hopeful that in that game I'll get points from one of the three of them at least. And yeah, and I've got even Robinson on the bench as a first sub. Isn't awful. So in terms of my team, I'm really happy with it. I think the only thing that would force me into a transfer is if we get a leak that someone doesn't start. But then I could just play Robinson. I was discussing this with Frosty yesterday. I've got Jota in my team. If I get news that Jota doesn't start, considering I'm wildcarding next week, yeah, I could do something like Jota to Mbermo. And to be honest, I'll be very tempted. Or I could just play Robinson instead in a 4-4-2 and just roll the transfer anyway. So that's something I'll have to think about. But otherwise, I really have no issue with my team, especially given all of the issues that Wolves are facing with their own illness, injuries. It feels pretty good having triple Liverpool because I've not seen a single wildcard draft that has triple Liverpool. And most of them have Luis Diaz, by the way. And I just have a feeling it's going to be Luis Diaz again that gets the goals. But hopefully this time around it's Salah and Jota. So there we go. Raya hasn't travelled. Yeah, so apparently, let me get the tweet up, actually. I can show you exactly so that I can give it to you word for word. Chunks is sending me voice messages. Sadly, I will not be able to listen to those, Chunks. He's on his wildcard this week. If you missed FPL Therapy, Chunks is on his wildcard this week. It was Connor Hum tweeted out. He does get a lot of early team news, to be fair to him. He tweeted, David Raya was not spotted with the rest of the Arsenal squad at the team hotel this evening. And then someone else messaged me privately about exactly the same thing, that he wasn't spotted. I will say one thing is that everyone's talking about Arteta's mind games. It is Leicester at home. I think last week you could have understood it, even against Spurs. I'm not saying Leicester are an easy team to beat, but I don't think you'd go to the extent of deliberately not showing Raya in training pictures and deliberately not taking it. There's no need to play that many mind games. And as much as Arteta does love the mind games, it feels slightly unnecessary. So I don't think David Raya is with the team. And as a result, I don't think he probably does start. And I don't think he'll be involved. But also, someone else messaged me saying that there would be an assessment on Saturday or Sunday. I don't know how reliable it is. But I've seen a couple of people suggest that it was touch and go as to whether he would be available. So by all accounts, it looks like Raya's probably going to miss game week 6. But he's probably going to be back for game week 7, based on the information we currently have. So you've got options, right? You could go from Raya to Gabriel or Saliba, if you don't currently have them, and still have that double up on the defence. You could switch from Raya to Havertz and go for a double attack. You could just keep David Raya in your team. I actually tweeted out yesterday, there are like 5 options. Keep him and pray that he's fine. Keep him and make sure that you've got some backup. Remove him and go for Havertz. Remove him and go for a Saliba or Gabriel instead. Or just only have 2 Arsenal. And I know people won't like that, but having 2 Arsenal is not the end of the world. I think, like, yes, 3 would be ideal. But if you're not that convinced by Havertz and you don't want to take up a defender spot with Saliba or Gabriel on top of who else you've already got, I kind of get just having 2 Arsenal. So yeah, let me know what you're currently planning based on that news. But yeah, I don't have any early team news at the moment, but it looks unlikely that Raya will feature. So people saying I'm like overdressed, looking smart. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't feel overdressed. It's just it's got even like a fur. It's not a particularly posh jacket. It's from Urban Outfitters, which is my favourite shop in the world. Quickly, Ross, I'm boarding a flight and won't be around for early team news. Okay? On a wild card, Sanchez, Lewis, Havertz versus Flecken, Saliba, Solanke. Flecken, Saliba, Solanke. I prefer that as a combo just about, but that is very, very close. I feel like maybe Sanchez, Lewis, Havertz has slightly higher upside, but Flecken, Saliba, Solanke is probably the safer set of picks. Blackfinch says, I'm stuck. Would you wildcard in my situation? Flecken, Henderson, Trent, Konsa, Porro, Robinson, Barco, Jota, Smith Rowe, Rogers, Palmer, Gibbs White, Haaland, Watkins, Wood. Yeah, that's very borderline, isn't it? Because like longer term, you don't want Jota. Palmer's been okay, but maybe he wouldn't be in the ideal team. You've got no Arsenal at all there. Gibbs White suspended. I feel like given that you've not already wildcarded, you've not caught all of the price changes throughout the week, I'd maybe be tempted to just go into game week 6, hope you get some sort of small green or small red, and then approach a game week 7 wildcard would be the temptation. Now, I don't think you need a wildcard looking at a team. It's not far off of where you'd want to be with a wildcard. It's just some of those squad players and obviously the absence of Arsenal. I think that's the only thing there that stands out to me. But I probably wouldn't, no. Jason said, hi, Ross. Thanks for the great content every week. You're welcome, Jason. Would you start Flecken or Henderson this week? Flecken. Oh, yeah, Flecken. Just about. I think Everton have actually been probably better than West Ham defensively. And I think both Brentford and Palace have looked awful defensively this season. Flecken probably makes more saves on average. I would lean towards saying I'd probably start Flecken, just about. Also, he's playing at home, I suppose, is another advantage. Max has been a member for 36 months. The big 3 years. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Good morning, guys. Hope you're well. Salah hat-trick pending. Just saying hi and good luck to all this week. I appreciate you, Max. And honestly, if Salah can bag a hat-trick, my life would be made. You know? I don't even care. Actually, I don't even need Salah to bag a hat-trick. I just need him to outscore Haaland for one bloody week. I mean, he did already once this season in game week 1. But if he could do it again, that would be delicious. What are you laughing at? Would be delicious. Delectable. That would be a delectable outcome. Went for Sells on the wildcard myself. I like Sells as a pick. The only concern I would have with Sells, and this is way in the future, is apparently Forest are desperate to sign, believe it or not, another goalkeeper. Like, they're still not happy with the goalkeeper situation. So there is some concern that in January, but obviously that's so far in the distance, you might lose Sells. Also, Forest fans still don't really rate him. So there would just be some concerns with me as to whether you're going to lose Sells in the long term. Can we run a captaincy poll? Yeah, absolutely. Good shout. I'll get that done now. Start a poll. Who are you captaining this week? Captaincy poll. Chat, who are we captaining? Who would you like the options to be? Is it just Salah, Saka, Haaland? Probably, isn't it? Haaland against Newcastle. Salah against Wolves. Or Saka against Leicester. Or other. Watkins. Yeah, but is Watkins more popular than Salah or Saka? I don't think so. So, unfortunately, the poll only allows you to have 3 options plus other. So I'm going to have to leave Watkins out, sadly. But I do really like, for what it's worth, I really like Watkins captain. I think Watkins has been heavily underrated at the moment. Like, he's had the same number of big chances as Erling Haaland. It's crazy. Like, the man is on fire. Should be a nice chilled stream this week, by the way. I think views will be low because I'm not on Wildcard and everyone else is. So people that aren't on, probably people that are on Wildcard would rather watch someone on Wildcard. So should be a nice chilled stream, which is what we want sometimes. We don't always want it to be manic. Namras says, sell Son for Jota, or sorry, sell Son or Jota for Mbermo. Oh, it depends. Long term, I'd prefer to, but Son might not be available. I'd probably sell Son and keep Jota, but like longer term, I would prefer to have Son than Jota. So it really depends. Like, I think Sonny will play for what it's worth, but there are doubts around him. Jota, I think, will start this week. Let's maybe wait on that decision, but at the moment, I'd lean selling Son. Nicola says, Rossi, hello. Porro and Savio or Robertson and McNeil can't get Trent. Haha. I actually really like Savio. I'm very likely to have one of Savio or Foden, I think, on my Game Week 7 wildcard. And obviously, Savio's cheap. Let's see if we get any early team news as to whether Savio starts. But I think I might prefer Porro and Savio, you know. I think that's got some high upside there. It's very close, that one. Alfie B says, hi, Ross. I'll be wildcarding next week like you. Cool. Have 3 free transfers. Should I take some 1-week punts or save? Gordon and Meniz would be replaced. If so, who? I think if you're starting Gordon and Meniz this week, it's probably not ideal. Gordon, maybe I wouldn't have an issue with. Unless we think Meniz is going to start, which I don't. I'd probably replace Meniz. In terms of 1-week punts, though, maybe you do just ride it out. Because I don't think there are any forwards this week at that price that I would like. Calvert-Lewin and Wood both have good home fixtures, but neither of them stand out to me as having a huge upside. I might be tempted to just rock with it and just hope you don't get a massive red. Because then you'd have 4 free transfers post-wildcard, Alfie. That feels very good. I'd need to see your entire team, really, but I would maybe lean towards rolling, believe it or not. Yeah. Good morning, Ross. DCL and Palmer versus Watkins and Maddison. Oh, that's a very, very difficult one. I would actually say Watkins and Maddison for me. I really like Watkins and Maddison. In fact, I've already started looking at wildcard drafts for next week. Maddison's been in a lot of them. I don't know if I'll be able to squeeze Watkins in, but I do like the idea of holding him as well. So yeah, I really like Watkins and Maddison. DCL and Palmer's nice, by the way. I suppose the thing that I should note there, which maybe makes me change my mind, DCL and Palmer, you've got 2 penalty takers. Watkins and Maddison, you don't have any penalty takers. We think anyway. Maddison could take a penalty, but yeah, DCL and Palmer is probably the more sensible pairing, but I've got a good feeling about the Watkins and Maddison one. Dave Jones says, I have Wissa and Pedro both injured, so Davis and Const are starting. That seems fine to me. Is Wissa to DCL Wood for a -4 worth benching one of Davis and Const? Long term, I think it might. Yeah, long term it might, but then can't you just do that for free next week? That's what I guess that would be the thought process. Is this week, Davis and Const are fine. I mean, I don't necessarily love the idea of starting Davis against Villa, but is a -4 worth it when you could do it for free next week? It depends if you have more moves that you need to make next week. Like, if you're going to have to take a hit for it regardless, maybe this is the week to do it. And yeah, I would probably say Wissa to DCL or Wood is worth it in the long term. So yeah, if you've got moves that you already know you need to make next week, just go for the -4 this week. But if you think you might be able to do it for free next week and there aren't future things you need to do, I would be tempted to maybe roll this week. AKU has just become a Raptor X Platinum member. Thank you so much, by the way. I think you're only the 5th Raptor X member, so thank you for the support. That's very, very kind of you. I appreciate it. And welcome as well. Good morning. Would you do João Pedro to Rual for a -4? Is that Raul Jimenez? If it's Raul, then no. I mean, do you know what? I'm not going to say no, but like the fixtures are running out, and I do think that Meniz could still start the odd game ahead of him. So I'm going to say no. I still think it's Chris Wood and Calvert-Lewin as my favoured 2 options. I find it difficult to look elsewhere. Ross, please get Andy Martin on FPL therapy. I've already asked him. He lives in Bournemouth, firstly, which is nowhere near London, and also he's very busy with his job. Apparently, he's taken all of his annual leave already for the rest of the year. So I think we're going to try and get something sorted like March, April time maybe. But I have asked Andy Martin, don't worry. He'd be a great guest. To Omas. don't know if that's your name or if you're a Thomas, but I'm top 15k. Firstly, congratulations, that's amazing. I'm thinking of going differential Saka and Watkins, Saka/Watkins captain. Do you think that's good risk to take, or is it Haaland just too good? No, I don't think Haaland's a must captain this week. I think in some of the coming weeks, like Fulham at home feels a bit must captain. Southampton at home is definitely must captain. But Newcastle are a bit weak defensively, absolutely. But I would probably say Saka captain is a very good viable alternative. And people keep pointing to the fact Saka's been ticking along. Saka hasn't had any monster hauls this season, which is fair. But also, Saka hasn't played a newly promoted side. And both Haaland and Salah have. And when both Haaland and Salah played like Ipswich, they got 17 and 14 points. So newly promoted sides with weaker defences are worth targeting. So I really don't mind Saka. And for the same reason I like Ollie Watkins. I really think it's not a bad week to go for a differential captain. It might be famous last words, but... And when I say differential, I'm not talking about captaining someone stupid, but Saka, Watkins are absolutely viable alternatives to the likes of Salah and Haaland this week. There are so many ways to play this game. Like, play the game the way you want to. Just because you're top 15k doesn't mean you should go really, really safe with it. By all means, still take risks. I mean, do whatever made you... If you got to the top 15k by playing it safe, maybe don't try and mix it up now, but if you got towards the top 15k by taking risks, why would you change that now? Like, keep taking risks. Absolutely. Felipe, sorry for butchering your name, says, "Hi Ross, on wildcard here." Very nice. "What's your preferred third defender after Trent and Gabriel? I have both of them, Lewis, and 2 4 millions right now." Yeah, Lewis would probably just about be the one. And then after that, it would be a Forest defender or Colwill. I'd say they're my favourite defenders at the moment. I also do like Mikalenko, considering how cheap he is. But yeah, I would say Lewis, Ola Aina, Milenkovic, Murillo, whoever you want to go for, Colwill, and then Mikalenko in that order, probably. BFPL says, "Chose Rice over Saka." They put the emoji of Rice. I was like, what is that emoji? I think it's Rice. "Chose Rice over Saka. Plays like a 10 versus low blocks." I mean, you're not wrong. When you watch Arsenal, he is going to get forward a lot. He takes set pieces. We know how good Arsenal are from set pieces. He's not an awful pick. I do just think, though, Rice, even if he was 1 million, is still not a better option than Saka. But for the saving, if you can do a lot else with that money, then he's not an awful pick. I would probably choose Rice in addition to, rather than instead of. Gvardiol to Gabriel -4 or start Konsa. Wildcard 7 or 8. I'd start Konsa. I'm not sure that Gabriel outscores Konsa by more than 4 points this week. Gvardiol to Gabriel. I'd just start Gvardiol, by the way. I just thought, yeah, just start Gvardiol or Konsa. I probably wouldn't make the move, no. I know Arsenal is scary to go without Arsenal. Like, it doesn't feel quite right. But at the same time, how much can you expect? I say that. They're going to win like 9-0 now, and Gabriel's going to score a hat-trick. FPL Pickle, anyone got Haaland, Salah, and Saka? So she's showing off, if you're wondering, because she has all three. That is such a strong position to be in, yeah. Pickle's got Saka, Haaland, and Salah. I would feel so... I'd wrap myself up in a cozy blanket and just sleep so well if I had those three. Feels nice.
I guess I'm relying on a lot of cheap mids, but oh well, they're good fixtures.
Yeah, they're good. My team is Henderson, Trent, Powell, Gabriel, Jota, Gordon, Rogers, Eze, Saka, Haaland, Muniz, João Pedro, Porro, and Greaves. Yeah, so I don't know, mate. You could get away with rolling. You absolutely could. But then at the same time, Gordon and Muniz in the starting 11 doesn't feel ideal considering your bench is João Pedro as the... I would be tempted to maybe make one move, keep Gordon and hope that they score against City, which they absolutely could, and Gordon's very good in those big games, and then maybe replace Muniz with Wood or Calvert-Lewin. That would be what I'd be slightly tempted to do, and maybe just hope that Muniz is on the bench, because he's not going to score off the bench every time or get an assist off the bench every time. But yeah, it's up to you, but I would probably be tempted to make just a one move. I wouldn't make more than that. TRX says, "Do you think Havertz and Watkins would be a good forward pairing going forwards? I'm saving my wildcard, so no Haaland yet." I love Watkins and Havertz. And in fact, in my wildcard video yesterday, I had Watkins and Havertz as the front two, but with Haaland as well. And it was very expensive, I know. But I just think Watkins and Havertz this week alone, the upside, having Leicester at home and Ipswich away, I really like the pair of them. So yeah, no issues with me at all. If you don't want Haaland, go for it. I'm going to bring in Haaland next week because I can't deal with the pain every week. But I understand why you might not want to quite yet. Because like, you can still do a lot with that money. I'm not going to put someone off going without Haaland, but I don't think I can do it any longer, sadly. Happy with my draft, and Saliba would price me out of Lewis. Okay. Thoughts on booking a transfer for Raya in 7 or just going with Raya and taking the 0-pointer? I would probably go for Edison and have the option to move to Raya because worst case scenario, Raya's out long term and then you've got to make a transfer. And if he is back in 7, I'm not saying that you should necessarily keep Edison, but with the fixtures they've got coming up, maybe you say, do you know what? I actually don't want to use my transfer to bring in Raya. I'm perfectly happy having Edison. So I don't think I would just keep Edison in there. Sorry, I wouldn't just keep Raya in there, I don't think, because yes, we think he's only out for this game, but we don't know that. Like, it could be that it's a lot more serious than Arteta's letting on. Like, remember he said Erdegaard, they'd assess him over the next 48 hours and they'd make a decision as to whether he will play or not. And now he's out long term. So I probably wouldn't take the risk with Raya unless you've got backup or unless you're willing to accept you might need to make a transfer. I'd just go for Edison. And I know people won't like the Edison move. Go for Allison if you want to. It's because what you can have then is that price point in place. Like, it's not like you're going for Flecken instead, where then if you want to get to Raya in the future, you've got to make a massive upgrade. That would be what I would do personally, Jay Saunders. Kieran says, hi Ross, wildcard of Sanchez, Gabriel, Trent, Aina, Keane, Greaves, Diaz, Mbermo, Semenyo, Madison, Rogers, Haaland, Watkins, Havertz. That is an... wait, how on earth have you afforded that? Who are you missing? I'm so confused how you can afford that. What am I missing there? What on earth? Oh, no Saka. Okay. God, I was looking at that for so long, Kieran, and I was like, how have you got like 108 million team value? There's no Saka. It's such a nice team, though, because I was looking at it going, wow, what a team. But yeah, I wouldn't want to go without Saka, but given what a ridiculous squad you've been able to build without him, I don't hate it. My concern with that team is your midfield then is Diaz, Mbermo, Semenyo, Madison, Rogers. Your most expensive midfielder is Diaz at 8. What happens if Foden pops off, Palmer pops off, Saka pops off, Salah pops? Like you've not really got that structure there to move to a premium midfielder. That would be my only concern. But it's a very nice team. Really do like it. Taylor says, on wildcard, I'm set on a 3 Arsenal with 2 times defence, but I really prefer the setup with an Arsenal goalkeeper, as Saliba sacrifices too much elsewhere. Would I be mad to get Neto and waste one of my free transfers next week on Raya? Yeah, I think that's absolutely bonkers, personally. Like, what are you expecting from Neto? Probably 6 points. Even if he makes a few saves, you might get 7 or 8. It's not worth booking in a transfer for a 7-pointer. And I think that's best case scenario. Unless he saves a pen, what you're probably looking at is 2 or 6 points for Neto. It's not worth it. And I know I just said that we don't know Raya's back. So I guess best case scenario is Raya isn't back and you've got Neto at a cheap price. I just wouldn't be playing around with that. I think I would just probably go without Raya for now. I know it sucks, but this is the issue with wildcard sometimes, is you play the wildcard, but you don't have the information. I'm just not sure that's a risk I'd be willing to take personally. I mean, what do you think, chat? Like, do you think it's worth the risk of just sticking Havertz in or going for Neto instead? I'm just not sure. Yeah, so if you have missed the news, a few people reporting that unfortunately Raya has not travelled. I say travelled. I know that they're at home, but they still travel to a hotel. He's not with the team at the hotel. Ryan Walters says, start Rico Lewis or Dunk. Definitely Rico Lewis. Definitely Rico Lewis. Unless we find out that he's not. Nad in the stream. Hey, Ross, Nad here to support the stream. Thank you very much, Nad. I appreciate that. P.S. Do I think you should do... I do think you should do Eze/Jota to Mbermo today, though. If West Ham continue this high press, he hauls. Yeah, it does feel like a massive risk going without Mbermo. But I think the only reason I would do that, Nad, is if we get a leak that Jota doesn't start. Otherwise, I don't know that it's worth the transfer. Because I'd really like to try and have 2 free transfers post-wildcard. I do agree, though. This is a really nice matchup for Mbermo. If you've got Mbermo this week, really, really jealous. And also, I've seen some people say they want to captain him. I mean, I wouldn't, because I still don't know exactly how good they're going to be without Wissa. But I equally think that Mbermo's not a bad option at all. James says, hi Ross, how would you compare Flecken and Sells? Sells is playing for the better defence, but Flecken's the better goalkeeper, makes more saves, and Sells is possible. It could be at some point that he's dropped. I don't think so. But especially given in January, Forest are going to be looking to sign a new goalkeeper, apparently. I would probably go with Flecken. But I do think that Sells is playing for the much better defence. It's up to you, really. Sells will get you more clean sheets. Flecken will get you more saves. Flecken's slightly more nailed long term. Fixtures-wise, there's not much to separate them. I would just about lean Flecken. Hi, Russ. Sorry, I've seen that one. Bench 1 of Bruno, Eze, Semenyo, Rogers, Mbermo, Solanke. That's extremely difficult. I would bench Rogers. I wouldn't bench Bruno and Mbermo because they're on penalties. Eze, I still think is a great option. Semenyo's got Southampton at home, and Solanke's been really good in recent weeks since he's back from injury. I would bench Rodgers there, but I wouldn't feel great about it because he's got Ipswich. This is the issue, though, when you've got such a strong squad, right? It's a good position to be in, of course. Anurag says, please help me with this draft, of course. And by the way, I saw someone said I've missed the super chat. I'm working through it slowly. I'm trying to bounce between answering normal chat questions and then super chat, so I'm a little bit behind, but don't worry, I'll get around to it. Sorry, where was that? Anurag. People have such interesting names. I'm just Ross. A bit boring, isn't it? Please help me with this draft. Flecken and a 4 million keeper. Cool. Trent, Gabriel, Aina, Keane, Greaves. Saka, Mbermo, Diaz, Semenyo, Rogers. Haaland, Havertz, Wood. 0 in the bank. Can downgrade Havertz to improve the defence. Yeah, that would be my only concern is you've got Trent and Gabriel, which is really good, and Flecken's fine. And Ola Aina is great. But in the weeks where you don't want to play Ola Aina, you've got Keane and Greaves. I would try and find a way, to get, even if it's Mikalenko or even if it's Colwell, like you don't have to go up really high, but I do wonder if like Havertz to Solanke and Keane to Colwell, might that make your team stronger long term potentially? So that would be where I would probably be leaning at the moment. But that is a really nice draft, and you could potentially get away with the cheaper defence. Chris says, good morning, Ross. Good morning, Chris. On a wildcard, I want to have a £4.5 million rotation in defence. I have Milinkovic, Colwell, but that leaves only 4.4 for my goalkeeper. Would you do Muric, Colwell, or Flecken Anderson? I really like the Forest Chelsea rotation. I don't mind the idea of going for Muric. I do just wonder in the long term, if they don't keep any clean sheets, like, are you going to regret going for a keeper from a weaker defence? But the thing is, Brentford aren't great defensively. I don't mind Muric, Milenkovic, Colwell. I think that's a really nice, solid combo. But if Anderson rotates in well with Milenkovic, then maybe you could take the risk. Like, I've not really looked at the rotation between Milenkovic and Anderson. But if that rotation also works well, maybe the Flecken one's slightly safer. But as of right now, I'd say Milenkovic, Colwell, Muric. Felipe says, thanks. Also doubting on Smith Rowe or Semenyo. I have Smith Rowe since game week 1. I have money tied up, but I don't know if to swap to Semenyo. So the short answer is over the next 2 weeks, I would drastically prefer Semenyo to Smith Rowe. Because Smith Rowe's got Forest and City, which are awful fixtures, and Semenyo's got Southampton and Leicester. So I would absolutely, over the next 2, prefer Semenyo. But from game week 8, I would absolutely prefer Smith Rowe, because I think Smith Rowe's a great option. His minutes are continuing to improve. And the fixtures, they're not great for either of them, but they're very bad for Bournemouth. So I would probably say go for Semenyo and bring Smith Rowe back in when he might have even fallen in price across the next couple. So I know you've got money tied up, but the next 2 definitely feel higher upside for Semenyo is what I would say. AKU says, hey Ross, I'm really having a headache with Luis Diaz. Fair enough. How essential do you think he is? I already play my wildcard in game week 4. By the way, good luck this week. Thank you very much. I don't think unless you're wildcarding, I don't think Luis Diaz is that important to have personally. His minutes haven't been that great. He's massively overperforming his expected data. And even the Slot said that it's... I love this response from Slot, by the way. They were talking about Luis Diaz's goals, and Slot said it's an incredibly small sample size. And I'm like, what an absolute man. Like, he's talking about sample sizes. And he said that obviously Luis Diaz isn't going to continue at that rate of scoring goals. But he did go on to say that Luis Diaz is a much better goal scorer than what he saw last year. So last year, Luis Diaz got 8 goals. He said that is not good enough for Luis Diaz. So he clearly thinks he is a player that will score more goals for Liverpool. But he's definitely not essential, especially with those minutes risk, and especially given how good Gakpo's been. Now, if you're on a wild card or you've got a spare transfer to use and you want a midfielder, then Luis Diaz is absolutely a brilliant player to bring in, for sure. But I wouldn't break your team to have him. So hopefully that helps answer that question. Going to have no goalkeeper, sell, or just accept the 0 points? I see what you mean. If you've already got Raya and you're not on a wild card, I'd probably just accept the 0 points, because long-term Raya is going to be a monster, right? You're going to want to have Arsenal defensive cover. So I would probably just rock and have no goalkeeper this week. I don't think it's worth the transfer, and then you want to bring probably him back in. So unless we get news today that Raya is actually out long-term before the deadline, I'd probably keep Raya if you own him. I wouldn't be selling him. Start Flecken Henderson, start Robinson, Mikalenko. I would start Flecken and Mikalenko, personally, out of those options there. Yeah, Flecken and Mikalenko. Start Solanke or Rodgers? Solanke. Flecken, DK says Flecken, Saliba, Gabriel, Gvardiol, Salah captain. Love that. Jota, Saka, and Burmo, Semenyo, Calvert-Lewin, and Watkins. That's a really strong team, DK. Salah and Watkins to Haaland and any 9 million next week. Does this look strong enough to not wildcard next week? That is absolutely hands down not a wildcard next week. It's similar to my team, but you've got Flecken instead of Henderson, which is good, better than mine. You've got double Arsenal defence, which is better than mine. You've got Gvardiol, which is better than mine. You've got Mbermo and Semenyo, which is better than mine. Like, yeah, once you bring in Haaland and, let's say, Savinho or any other midfielder for next week, it basically is a wildcard, DK. Absolutely, you're not wildcarding that team. Unless something changes this week, that is not a wildcard team. Ishi Z says Sanchez, Lewis, Jackson, or Flecken, Havertz, Davis. Ooh. Oh, that's such a tough one. I actually quite like Sanchez, Lewis, Jackson, but then Havertz is a big play. I actually would go Sanchez, Lewis, Jackson, believe it or not. I really like having a couple of Chelsea in there. Chelsea are a team that are being quite underrated, I think. They've been very good so far this season, I think, for most of the games. Even against City, I thought they were more impressive than people gave them credit for. -4 to get rid of Onana for Maddison, Diaz, or wait. I'd need to see the rest of the team, but given it's Ipswich, and you've already got Onana, I don't know that I'd make that -4 this week. Kieran White says, hi Ross, what do you think of my draft? Pickford and 4 million goalkeeper, Trent, Gabriel, Aina, Colwill, Greaves, Saka, Diaz, Mbermo, Semenyo, Rogers, Haaland, Jackson, Wood. Yeah, really strong. I actually really like the Pickford choice. Everyone slated me in my video yesterday for it, but I think given that Branthwaite's back and the fixtures are turning, I think there'll be clean sheets for Everton. I really like that Aina and Colwill combination. I love the idea of Jackson for the next few. Solid. 9.5 out of 10, Kieran. I can't really think of many other places that team needs improving. Really solid. Jedi says, on a wild card, with 2 times Arsenal, Gabriel and Saka, currently have Raya, Robinson, Konsa. What would you recommend to change to? Would you like a Flecken, Saliba, Mikalenko? Yeah, if you can get Flecken, Saliba, Mikalenko, because I think that's slightly more expensive. But if it's not, I think I actually prefer that. Yeah, I don't think that's bad at all. Flecken, Saliba, Mikalenko, given the doubts with Raya, of course. I think that's still really solid. You still get a really solid goalkeeper. You've got Saliba in place who starts every game. And Mikalenko's a really good price. Yeah, I like that. Solanke or Watkins? I mean, if they were the same price, Watkins. But given that they're not, Solanke might be the better value player. I dabbled in a little bit of dibbling, Ross. That cracked me up when Chunk said that. I want to dabble in a little dibbling. Tyler Dibbling's a baller, by the way. I think he'll get really good minutes. People seem to be a bit worried. I'm not saying he'll start every game, but you don't need him to at that price. And I do think he'll still get very good minutes. Paul says, hi Ross, to fund Haaland, I'm having to sell Salah. This week, best replacement for Salah, probably Luis Diaz or Mbermo. Luis Diaz or Mbermo, I would say. Oh, I don't like selling Salah this week, but that's why I obviously have not wildcarded, because I don't like... Loads of people have sold Salah for what it's worth. He's probably going to fall in price tonight, Salah. He's been heavily sold. So I guess the thing is with Salah, his ownership's not going to be that high now. So he's not going to punish you as much, but I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe if I had like 5 free transfers, I'd be tempted. Although I still don't think I'd sell Salah this week, even if I had all of the free transfers in the world. Hi, Ross. On a wildcard, Havertz, Diaz, or Eze Solanke? Good luck this week. Oh, as much as I love Eze and Solanke, it's difficult to look past Havertz and Diaz. They've both got really high upside this week. I would say at the moment Havertz and Diaz. And that is a really, really nice draft, Alex. I really like that. Yeah, no issues at all with me there. Oh, yeah, someone just made the point. Best replacement for Salah would be Saka if you've got like loads of funds. But if you don't have the funds for Saka, then yes, still Luis Diaz and Mbermo for me. Start Smith Rowe or Calvert-Lewin? Probably Calvert-Lewin. Forest have been really good defensively. Although I keep telling people to bench Smith Rowe and he keeps scoring and getting returns. So maybe don't bench Smith Rowe. It's not that I dislike Smith Rowe. It's just I think every week there's something. Like I didn't know if his minutes were quite secure. And then he was playing a much deeper role. And then he's got a difficult fixture. So it does feel like every week I say, yeah, don't start Smith Rowe. But it's no disrespect to him. It's just there are other options that I prefer normally. What do you think about Ndiaye? Yeah, I looked at Ndiaye yesterday because he's 5.4 million, right? His data is absolutely diabolically bad. Like, I was so sad because I was like, do you know what? That could be a nice pick. He's played really decent minutes across the last 3. It's just non-existent data. He's got 0.15 XG and 0.04 expected assist. So he's got 0.19 XGI. If you compare that to even a Pedro Porro's got higher XGI than Ndiaye. If you compare that to Gabriel Gabriel has got very similar XGI to Ndai. He's got slightly higher, hasn't he? Yeah. So Gabriel's got more XGI. Robinson, is he close? No, Robinson's actually not been that attacking, has he? Trent has got comfortably more. Like, every player that you could possibly look at has better data than Ndai. And maybe that will improve, because the fixtures you have to remember so far were Brighton, Spurs, Bournemouth, Villa. Leicester last week, but he had slightly better data. But maybe with this run of fixtures, we'll start to see more from him, and his minutes are good, but I'm not that inspired by him as an option based on what I looked at there. So maybe, though, if like you're really struggling for funds and you can't stretch to a Calvert-Lewin or a Wood. Eva Nilsson punt. Much more interested in Eva Nilsson. We can look at his data. Do you know what? Let's jump over to Hub because we can look at a bit more detail. By the way, if you are watching now and you've been someone that's been considering signing up to Fantasy Football Hub, Sunday or Monday is the final day for 50% off. I think it's the 30th, which is Monday. But basically, there is a link down below in the description to get 50% off Fantasy Football Hub. There is so much that you can get access to, like points predictions, fixture analyzer, player comparison, price changes. Like, price changes is incredibly useful. Just all of the stuff on the site. And it's super, super, super cheap now if you get 50% off. So there will still be discounts throughout the year. There might be other discounts in the future. So I'm not saying you have to do it now, but if you are looking to, this is probably the best time for you to do it. So there is a link down below for 50% off. But we were looking at Eva Nilsson, weren't we? Eva Nilsson. So Eva Nilsson's XGI per 90, 0.7. He did take a penalty though, didn't he? Let's look at his non-penalty XGI. 0.35 per 90. See, that's just much better data. Like, I'd much rather I know he's obviously more expensive, but I'd much rather an Eva Nilsson punt than I would like an Ndai punt. But that's not bad data at all. I suppose the issue is when you look at someone like a Calvert-Lewin instead. Similar data, but definitely on pens, and his minutes are better. And so once you take into account minutes and pens, and also the fixtures longer term are better for Calvert-Lewin, I'd always steer back towards a Calvert-Lewin. But in terms of the short term, Eva Nilsson for the next 2 weeks could be a really cheeky pickup. I don't mind that at all. Martinelli is a punt. Martinelli and Trossard, I'd expect them both to start. Again, although you could see Jesus start. This is my only concern. If Jesus does start, one of Trossard or Martinelli plays, and it usually is Martinelli, but then he'll come off very early probably for Trossard. I just think there's probably enough to avoid for now for me, sadly. Because listen, I do think they are great options, the pair of them. And like when they, especially Trossard, when he plays, I think he's really nice. But yeah, I just have concerns about their minutes, especially in the long term. Right, this week, you'd probably expect them to both get okay minutes, and even next week. But longer term, Jesus as the 9. Trossard's not suspended, no. No, Trossard's not suspended. Everyone's... honestly, I mentioned that Trossard in my video. No, look, everyone's wrong. This is funny. I mentioned Trossard in my video, and everyone's like, Trossard suspended. Your ball knowledge sucks. Trossard served his suspension in the EFL Cup. So Trossard is available. So Trossard could start this week. I'm not saying he will, by the way, but as you can see, there's no red flag on him. He served his suspension in the EFL Cup. So if you're wondering for the future, because this is good info to have, players cannot serve a yellow card suspension in the Cup. So if a player hits 5 yellow cards, they can't serve that suspension in the Cup. But if a player gets sent off, they can serve that suspension in the Cup. Does that make sense? And because it was obviously only a 1-game suspension, he served that. And the reason, because I looked into this, the reason that a player can't serve a yellow card suspension in the Cup, does anyone know why? Have a little guess in the comments or in the chat. You might know why. Does anyone know why a player can't serve a yellow card suspension in the Cup? There's a good reason for it, and it makes sense. But you can serve a red card suspension in the Cup. I wonder if anyone knows this. Think about, like, how you could potentially play the system. Okay, there we go. Jota 582 is the first one. You could do it on purpose. So if a player's on 4 yellow cards and they've got a big Premier League game coming up, but they've got a midweek Carabao Cup fixture, you just pick up a cheeky yellow card right at the end of the game, and you know you serve your suspension in the Cup. So basically, yeah, 5 yellow cards, 10 yellow cards, you can't serve your suspension in the Cup. But if it's a red card, which it was for Trossard, he did. Anyway, so Trossard is not suspended for this game. But it still could be Martinelli and Jesus. In fact, I think there is a small chance that it is that. If I had to guess now, I would say it's going to be Trossard and Martinelli both starting. But I'm not an Arsenal fan, so maybe I got that wrong. Morning, Ross. On a wild card, would you rather have Diaz, Lewis, and Wood, or Eze/Savio, Gvardiol, and DCL? Oh, that's such a tough one, mate. That's such a tough one. Diaz, Lewis, and Wood marginally, but I think that's extremely close. And if you were to ask me next week, I'd probably prefer the latter option. I just think for this week, Diaz really is a fantastic option. I'd say just about the option with Luis Diaz, just because I think Wolves are going to really struggle in this game. Matt says Flecken, Gabriel, Romero, Lewis, Palmer, Saka, Semenyo, Mbermo, Rogers, Haaland, Solanke, benching Wood, Mikalenko, and Greaves. What are your thoughts regarding Trent versus Solanke? If it's Trent versus Solanke, I think that's extremely close, honestly. I think Trent is that good. I do understand when you look at it like that, you say you want the goal scorer, you want Solanke, but Trent's got routes to points that he doesn't have. Like, he's got the clean sheet, he's got the assist threat. He's had a bit of goal threat this season as well. I'd want Trent in my wildcard draft, but I would also want Solanke, so it's not an easy straight shootout for me because I would choose both of them. But if I'm choosing one, I would actually choose Trent, believe it or not. Lewis Hardy says Mikalenko, Lewis, Fleckham, or Colwill, Aina, Pickford. Oof. Oof, that's very tough. I actually... Do I? I feel like the higher upside there is Mikalenko, Lewis, Flecken, but the safer picks, and also, I think I prefer Colwill, Aina, and Pickford, believe it or not. What is this? Well, I'll be keeping my eye on any Arsenal news. Anytime oh, my camera's gone. Anytime I get anything trustworthy, if I do, I'll obviously keep my eye on team news and stuff like that as well. So anyway, yeah, sorry, Lewis. I would go Colwill, Aina, and Pickford. Go for Havertz without Erdegaard. Might be midfield too. Yeah, so this is a bit of a mistake that people are making. Havertz doesn't play in midfield without Erdegaard there. And I think that's just people not understanding the new tactics that they're playing. So what they do without Erdegaard, or at least what they've done, they might change this, by the way, is they're basically playing a 4-4-2 with Trossard and Havertz as two number 9s. So it's obviously not like a Sean Dyche traditional 4-4-2, but they're basically both playing next to each other like this. One of them might drop a little bit deep and they basically will switch positions. But what that means is Havertz isn't playing the Erdegaard role. He's not playing in midfield. He's still playing slightly further forward. And the thing is, even if Havertz was playing the Erdegaard role, he's got bloody Leicester and Southampton at home. So he's still a really good option, Havertz. I think people are worrying a little bit too much about Erdegaard being out. Like, Havertz is still going to get chances in these games. Hi, Ross. Wildcard 6. Would you start Aina or Lewis this week? Lewis. Which combination do you think is better? Diaz, Wood, or Savio, Havertz? I think someone just... the thing is, Havertz and Diaz are both so high upside. I think Diaz and Wood is slightly better. Slightly, but it's very, very close. If you've got a gut feeling the other way, I would go the other way, because I think that's basically a 50-50. Have a great weekend, and may the Green Arrow gods look out for you. Thank you very much, MN Chuckstar. I appreciate you. Yeah, so I would say Lewis and then Diaz Wood, personally. On wildcard, Gabriel, Gvardiol, Konate, Colwill, Greaves, Semenyo, Saka, Mbermo, Rogers, Haaland, Calvert-Lewin. Deciding Sanchez, Flecken, Diaz, Maddison, Havertz, Watkins, Solanke. I actually really like Sanchez, by the way. I'm tempted on wildcard, but I think Flecken will make more saves. So I'll say Flecken, Luis Diaz, and Havertz out of those options there. But it's a really nice wildcard draft, my friend. I have no issues with you going either way on any of those picks, to be honest. Again, as boring as it sounds, just trust your gut feeling. I really don't mind Edison. A few people are asking about Edison. He's a bit of a troll. He doesn't make many saves. But you have to think with the fixtures coming up, what have they got? Fulham, Wolves, Southampton. There's such good fixtures for City. There will be clean sheets in those games. So I don't mind that. Mark says, hi Ross, thoughts on this wild card? Flecken, Valdemarson, Trent, Gabriel, Saliba. Okay, double Arsenal defence. And Lewis. And Trent. Greaves, Rogers, Saka, Mbermo, Diaz, Savio, Haaland, Solanke, DCL. I think you're too stacked in defence. Because what you're telling me there is you're either playing a 4 at the back every week or Lewis is on the bench. And I just don't think you need Lewis if you're going to bench him. Like, what are you going to do next week when you've got Trent, Gabriel, Saliba and Lewis all with great fixtures? Unless you are planning on playing a 4 at the back. I think you either drop Saliba or Lewis in that team, Mark. But other than that, it's a really solid team. Really like it a lot. Thoughts on triple captaining Salah? No tongue twisters today. Oh, not that again, please. Thoughts on triple captaining Salah? I think there will be better weeks to triple captain than Salah this week. He's playing away. We think Wolves have got injuries and illness, but we don't definitely know it. I would probably say there are better weeks. But if you've got a gut feeling about Salah triple captain, maybe you just go for Salah triple captain. Like, I even think Haaland against Southampton at home in a few weeks is probably better. Bench one of Robertson, Rico, Lewis, Saliba, or DCL. I mean, out of those options, it probably is Rico Lewis, believe it or not, Robin. Because you'd expect Newcastle to have chances to score, even if Isak is out. I'd probably bench Rico Lewis, but I don't love that at all. Hi, Ross. Garnacho to Diaz or Mbermo? If you're thinking long term, like if you're not playing your wild card next week, I would go Mbermo. If you're wanting to attack just this week, Diaz could be the slightly higher upside play. I would probably say, though, regardless, I would go Mbermo myself. Jake says, current wildcard of Raya Fleckham, Gabriel Gvardiol, Lewis Powell Keane, Saka Semenyo, Mbermo Diaz, Ahmad Haaland, DCL Stewart. 3.8 in the bank. Thoughts on Palmer? I wouldn't go Palmer. I would upgrade both Ahmad and Stewart. I just think that team looks a little bit imbalanced. It looks a little bit too weak in the attack. You've got loads of money invested into the goalkeeper spots. I would probably upgrade both Ahmad and Stewart with the money in the bank, personally. FPL Scope's been a member for 30 months. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Josh says, good morning, Ross. Hope you're well. I'm doing well, thank you. Looking at bringing in Dallo or Mazraoui, is there anyone else you like in that 4.5 to £5 million price bracket? I have Aina. Colwill. I don't think I'd be interested in Man United defence massively. I mean, the fixtures aren't bad from 8 onwards. I'd probably go Colwill. If not Colwill, I still think Konsa's a fine pick. Outside of that, I mean, you could try and get ahead of the curve. Wolves have really good fixtures from 10. 8 Nuri could become an option. I would probably go for Colwill and Aina as my two favourite 4.5. Also, Mikalenko's not bad. Got a massive super chat from Mackenzie. Just says, you're such a good person and love your streams and videos and the podcast, man. The greatest. That is so kind. Thank you so much, Mackenzie. Wow. I saw that massive super chat come in and I was like, I need to get to that in a second. And I was like, what question are they going to ask me? Just a nice comment. What a kind person. Thank you so much. Another big super chat from Benjamin says, good morning, Raptor. I've got Raya, Porro, Trent, Robinson, Eze, Madueke, Smith Rowe, Salah, Rogers, Calvert-Lewin, Haaland. Banging the starting 11. Love that. Barco, Lewis, Valdemarston, and João Pedro on the bench. Okay, not as strong on the bench. Any thoughts? I used my wild card in game week 5. Oh, I used a wild card. That makes sense because that's a great team. What are my thoughts? My thoughts are that you just rock with that team this week. I mean, I would start Lewis instead of Robinson is the only thing I would say. Like, I'd get Lewis into the starting 11. But that starting 11 doesn't need much. I mean, you do have no Saka, but you've got Salah. So, honestly, mate, I would rock with that team and roll the transfer. I don't think you need to, especially the week after a wild card. You've already got Raya in. If Raya does miss out, you lose out. But I'm hearing certain rumours might be going around that potentially Raya might be with the squad. So don't do anything on Raya right now. I'm going to try and confirm that in a bit. But there are rumours going around that Raya might actually be there. I need to wait and see on something concrete. But I'll let you know. I'll keep you updated. Stick with me. Edison, Saliba and Robbo or Raya, Lewis and Trent? Edison, Saliba and Robbo or Raya, Lewis and Trent? That's close. I would say Raya, Lewis and Trent if we can get confirmation that Raya's available. If we can't get confirmation Raya's available, Edison, Saliba and Robertson. Because it's just safer, isn't it? But Raya, Lewis and Trent is definitely the better combo for me, Sam. Ross, Maniz to Wood for a -4 or just play Davis versus Villa? Only issue is I have Rodgers playing already. If you're not wildcarding next week, I would bring in Wood. If you are wildcarding next week, or you've already wildcard... if you're not wildcarding, I would make the move because long-term Wood's a great option. If you are wildcarding, I would leave it. Hopefully that makes sense, FPL Scoped. But yeah, I don't mind the -4 to bring him in because you probably do expect Davis to concede. So all you need is one return from Wood and it pays back the hit and then you've got Wood in place for next week. Obviously, next week's not a great fixture, but longer term. Hey, Ross, sell Konsa for Gabriel or roll a transfer and observe? I'd roll the transfer and observe, honestly. Konsa could get a clean sheet this week, absolutely, against Ipswich. 2 free transfers and 2.6 in the bank at the moment, and I only have Raya from Arsenal. I do get the temptation to get Gabriel, especially off the back of 2 goals and a clean sheet in the last 2 weeks, but I realistically think what you're expecting from Gabriel is 6 points. Like, you can't expect a goal every week, so the expectation for Gabriel is 6 points. And so even if Konsa only gets 2 points, if you value a transfer at being worth 4 points, it's probably not worth it this week. I would just play Konsa. Dashmate says, egg of the year. Thank you. Raya, Gabriel, Dunk, Trent, Ahmad, Smith Rowe, Kulusevski, Diaz, Salah, Havertz, Haaland. Bench of Fabianski, Greaves, Johnson, Jefferson. Any hits worth taking? 150k. What start you've had? That is unbelievable. Would I take any hits? I would be slightly concerned about Ahmad. I don't know that Ahmad will start this week, and even if he does, it doesn't feel like a great option. There would be some temptation for me to do like Ahmad to Semenyo, or potentially, if not Ahmad, to Rodgers. Like, I think there are much better picks than Ahmad, but you could also just not take a hit. Like, especially at your rank. Maybe you just rock with it. Like, you've clearly done something well to get to where you are, and it's not an awful team at all. I like the Havertz captaincy punt, by the way. That is very cheeky. Very, very cheeky indeed. Is Raya playing? Let me just look on Twitter to see if I can see anything, and then I'll get back to answering your questions. I'm just hearing murmurings that actually he might be with the squad, Raya, but I've not seen anything concrete. Once I get information, I can't see anything now that I can share that's concrete, but if I do, I'll let you know. I'll let you know. Raya update, please. I'll try. We've got an hour and 10 minutes, so I'll let you know closer, obviously. A good nailed rotating option for Semenyo in 8 and 10. It's McNeil. I know it upsets people, but Dwight McNeil is comfortably the best option to rotate with Semenyo. Like, look at these fixture rotations here you get. So in 8, 9, 10, when Semenyo's got, Arsenal, City and Villa, you have Ipswich, Fulham, Southampton for McNeil. Like, McNeil has to be the best rotating option for me with Semenyo. I might have Dwight McNeil on a wild card. I don't think he's bad as an 8th attacker. Like, you don't want him as a starting attacker every week, but across those 3 weeks, he's absolutely fine to have. My wild card, says Callum, is Edison Lewis. I genuinely love the double City defence. Trent Gabriel, Mbermo, Diaz, Saka, Semenyo, Jackson, Haaland, Calvert-Lewin. Bench of Rodgers, Aina, Mikolenko. Love the videos. That is a cracking draft. Nothing to say. Nothing to say. Love it. Really like the idea of Jackson. I like the Edison Lewis picks. Yeah, 9.5 out of 10, Callum, if you wanted a rating. Really nice. Is Sells good? Sells plays for a good defence, but he is not a good goalkeeper, and I do just worry longer term about his minutes, especially after January. But it might be that you can sell your goalkeeper then. So yeah, Sells isn't bad. Konate versus Porro. Porro for me. I just think Konate's fixtures are starting to turn, and he's not got that much attacking threat. I know he did score recently, or got an assist, can't remember, but I would go for Porro. Thoughts on Vandenberg? I like Vandenberg as a cheap 4 million defender. It would be Vandenberg and Greaves would be my favourite 4.0 defenders. Salah or Haaland or Watkins for captaincy? Sorry, Saka or Haaland or Watkins? Haaland. If you've got Haaland, I'd captain Haaland. But I really do like Saka and Watkins as alternatives. Hi, Ross. Would you consider Gusto in a wildcard? Not for me, no. I'd rather just go Colwill. I don't know how nailed Gusto is. He's not even shown that much attacking threat this season when he's played. I would just go for Colwill. Start Colwill or Robinson? Oh, that's a good question. I'd start Robinson. I think Brighton will score. So I would start Robinson this week. I have Raya, Robinson, Saliba, Mazraoui, Onana, Madueke, Salah, Rodgers, Saka, Wood, Haaland, Vardy, and Henderson on the bench. Any advice? No. No, nothing really that you need to desperately change there. You've got your triple Arsenal. If this is a wild card, then yes. I wouldn't have Henderson. I wouldn't have Madueke. I wouldn't have Onana. I wouldn't have Mazraoui. I wouldn't have Vardy. But if it's your team, it's absolutely fine this week. I've got no real issues with that. Any advice? I still do think that there are probably better long-term picks than Vardy. So that might be a position. If Leicester continue to not look quite as great, if his minutes aren't perfect, that's a position you could look to replace. And Onana, I still think there are much better cheap mids than Onana. But for this week, all of those options are fine. I think they're like Vardy could absolutely score this week against Arsenal. Wouldn't surprise me if Vardy scores a pen or gets a goal against Arsenal. He's a big game player, Vardy. Sam Ritchie says, thoughts on Raya to Edison for a -4? No, not for me, Sam. In defence, I have Trent Robinson, Konsa. Just worried I have no goalkeeper as my sub-goalkeeper is Fabianski. The thing is, right, Edison's going to get you 6 points at best, probably. He might go and get a 7 or 8. But let's even say Edison gets you 8 points, which is like best case scenario. You've taken a -4 hit, so you've only gained 4 points. And that isn't the best case scenario, you've gained 4 points. Worst case scenario is either Raya is available and you miss out on that, or Edison concedes, only gets you 2 points. You've then lost 2 points overall, and then Raya's back next week. Like, I don't think there's enough upside in doing Raya to Edison for a -4, Sam. I would leave it. I just play with no goalkeeper. If Raya's not available, like, we've still not had complete confirmation on Raya's availability. Moha says, hi Ross, on my wildcard, Lewis and Watkins, in brackets, only Gabriel and Saka from Arsenal. Okay. Saliba and Solanke. Yeah. Gvardiol and Havertz. But 2 4 million defenders. I wouldn't go for the one with 2 4 million defenders then. So Gvardiol and Havertz would be out for me. I just think this is a wild card, so you want to build a good long-term structure. Lewis and Watkins, but only 2 Arsenal. Or Saliba and Solanke, so you have triple Arsenal. I think Saliba and Solanke is probably the safest, best pairing there. But I like Lewis and Watkins for the upside. I feel like Lewis and Watkins has the highest upside of all the picks there. But yeah, I'll go Saliba and Solanke. William says, Sells Trent, Gabriel, Konsa, Rogers, Mbermo, Diaz, Savio. Love the Savio pick. Watkins, Havertz, Haaland. Adama, Porro, Robinson on the bench. Sitting at 200k. Great rank, William. Captain Watkins. Firstly, I love the team. Secondly, yeah, Captain Watkins. I don't mind it. Like, it feels like a week where Watkins could go big. Like, I feel like he's been teasing it, hasn't he? Like, I know he got the brace against Everton, but he's got 0.87 XGI, 0.72, 1.25, even 0.4 is not awful here. Like, he's teasing a big score. And we saw Watkins last season can dramatically overperform his expected data. So, yeah, I feel like there is something coming for Watkins. Whether it'll be this week, I don't know. But I don't mind the idea of a captaincy on him. I really do think he's a great option. Jeddy says, Flecken, Sells, or Henderson? I'd probably go Flecken, personally. Any Raya news? If we don't get any, what do we do? No Raya news yet. If we don't get any, I probably wouldn't risk it. But if you own him, just keep him. And if you do want to take the risk, I get it. But if we get no news in the next hour, I probably wouldn't risk it. Because you just don't know if he does miss out this week, what's to say he's back next week? And if he's not back next week, I know he's fixture proof, but then he goes into like 4 fixtures that aren't brilliant for clean sheets. Yeah, I probably wouldn't, personally, risk it unless we get an update. Philippe says, Raya, Aina, Semenyo, Calvert-Lewin, or Flecken, Keane, Rogers, Havertz? Raya, Aina, Semenyo, Calvert-Lewin by some distance is the better combo there for me. Should I start Maddison or Rogers? Ooh. Oh, that's so tough. Maddison's been excellent, but Rogers has the better fixture. I would start Maddison instead of Rogers, just about. But I think that's very, very close. Double Arsenal defence or double attack? Honestly, I would go double attack now. I'd go Havertz, Saka, and Gabriel. But I think long term, double defence is better than double attack. But right now, for the next 2, I prefer double attack. Vizvesh says, I have Trent, Gabriel, Aina, Vandenberg, and Fass, and currently on wildcard. Do I bring Lewis in? That bench is a little bit weak for me. So I would bring Lewis in, but not instead of Aina. It would have to be instead of Fass, probably. I don't like having 2 really cheap defenders where, especially if you're starting Aina or if you're starting Lewis, like I feel like you need a little bit more cover. So yeah, I like the idea of bringing Lewis in, but not instead of Aina. It would be instead of one of your cheap defenders. If Haaland got a card last week, was that -4 points? No, he wouldn't have lost bonus completely, but he would have lost 1 bonus, I think, based on the bonus point system. So it would have been a -2. So if you captained him, it would have been -4, yeah. Yeah, it was very... I think he should have been booked at least once in that game, probably twice. In fact, throwing the ball at the back of someone's head, I don't understand how that's not a sending off. Like, because if he'd have done that, let's say that 2 players are fighting, right? And the ref's trying to break it up, and a player grabs a ball and launches it at the back of a player's head. As funny as it is, and I can understand the funny side, there is not a single world in which the ref doesn't send the player off there. So Haaland should have been booked twice for barging people in the face. Like, he virtually assaulted Saliba at the start of the game, and then he's thrown the ball at the back. I don't know how Haaland wasn't sent off in that game, honestly. And I didn't say that on Twitter, because people would have been like, you're so salty that you don't own Haaland. take FPL out of the equation. That man did at least 3 or 4 things that deserved a booking. So there's that. Yeah, so Haaland probably was lucky not to get a card last week. Finners says, Flecken or Sanchez on wildcard, and is Lewis worth it? I think Flecken and Sanchez are probably my 2 favourite 4.5s. I'm very tempted by Sanchez myself next week. I would probably lean Flecken now, just for more saves, slightly better fixtures. And is Lewis worth it? Yeah, but let's see, because we might get a leak today that Lewis doesn't start. And if Lewis doesn't start this week, do you want a player on wildcard that's not starting every game? Yeah, you're salty. Yeah, okay, maybe I am salty. I don't see as launching the ball at the back of someone's head is funny. Well, it is. Objectively, but it's not, right? From a footballing perspective, you just can't do that. Didn't Roy? I was watching the overlap. Roy Keane, and I watched the clip the other day. Roy Keane got sent off back in the day when no one got sent off. You could do whatever you wanted, really. Roy Keane got sent off for launching the ball at the back of Alan Shearer's head, didn't he? If Roy Keane's going to get sent off for that, why is Haaland not get sent off? You know. Personally, it's just my opinion, though. It's just my opinion. Would you go for McNeil as an 8th attacker if you have Calvert-Lewin? I do get what you mean. Like, doubling up on the Everton defence doesn't feel great. I wouldn't mind McNeil as an 8th attacker, assuming you really don't feel like you're going to have to play him often. If you feel like quite often you're starting McNeil, then what you're telling me is you're going for McNeil and DCL double up on a wild card, which is like, probably not. But if you can get away with benching McNeil most weeks, then yeah, in the odd fixture, if against Ipswich you have to play Calvert-Lewin and Dwight McNeil, it looks kind of okay. So yeah, I don't mind it, but only if you don't have to play McNeil all the time. MN Chuckster says, finally settled on the wildcard. Okay, let's see it. Edison Lewis, love it. Trent Gabriel, Semenyo, Mbeumo Diaz, Saka, Calvert-Lewin, Wood, Haaland. Bench of Fabianski, Smith Rowe, Ain agrees. Still leaves me 0.5 in the bank. What are your thoughts? I love that. That is about as good as it can get. My only thing that I would want, but obviously you can't have everything, is I do kind of like the idea of having like a Solanke or Havertz price point in there. But other than that, it's a beautiful draft. Like it can't get much better, I don't think. Abdul Gadir says, bench 1 of Rodgers, Semenyo, Calvert-Lewin. Rodgers, out of those 3. Semenyo's got the best fixture. Calvert-Lewin's on pens. I'd bench Rodgers. Maybe silly, but I don't regret benching him last game week. Who did you bench? What, Haaland? Or Gabriel? Either way, as long as you don't regret your decisions, that's the main thing, you know? Kong says, Flecken and a 4 goalkeeper. Gabriel, Timber, Aina, Vandenberg, Greaves. Salah, Mbeumo, Madison, Semenyo, Rodgers, Haaland, Havertz, Wood. Any advice, Ross? My advice is that defence is asking for trouble. I don't like the defence. Timber, when he plays, is going to be great, but he won't start every game. Ola Reina is fine, but you don't want to start him every week. And then you've got Vandenberg and Greaves as cover for Timber and Aina. I think you need to improve that defence. I think at the very least, Timber needs to become Saliba. And I would also want Vandenberg and or Greaves upgraded slightly. I know that's a lot of money and a lot of changes, but that defence feels a little bit too weak for me, Kong. So that's where I would change. Obviously, to do that, you've probably got to downgrade. When I look at your team, you've got to downgrade Maddison or Havertz to do that. So I understand that it's not ideal, but it feels like you're asking for trouble in the near future. Dennis says, hey, brother, quick thoughts. Wildcard time. Raya, Robinson, Trent Porro, Gabriel Aina, Smith Rowe, Rodgers, Salah, Mbeumo, Semenyo, Haaland, Welbeck, full team. I don't mind Welbeck. I just think that the fixtures coming up for Brighton, like there are better fixtures to attack. The thing is, they're not awful, Brighton's fixtures, especially from an attacking perspective. Chelsea, Spurs, I actually think both are better defences than people give them credit for. Newcastle's a good fixture, Wolves a good fixture, then Liverpool and City, and even to some extent Bournemouth. I don't think this is a lovely run of fixtures. This here is a really nice run of fixtures. Right here, I'll have probably João Pedro or Welbeck here. But right now, I just wonder, are there better cheap forwards that you can go for in terms of fixtures? But Welbeck will be a really nice differential, so I don't want to put you off too much. And this week, you could do something, but I probably wouldn't go there. But other than that, really nice team. No major issues with that at all. Palmer and Mbeumo Saliba versus Salah, McNeil, Timber. As much as I love Salah, Palmer and Mbeumo and Saliba. I don't even love Palmer as an option, by the way. I'm not a big fan. I think he'll get points, probably even this week. He'll get points, but I just think you can do better. So I would go for the Palmer and Mbeumo Saliba option, but that's just because I think Mbeumo and Saliba are so much stronger than McNeil and Timber as a combo. What potential problems are there with a midfield of Savio, Barnes, Johnson, Garnacho and Semenyo. The rest of the team is stacked. What problems do you have? Neither Savio, Barnes, Johnson, or Garnacho are nailed. So you've got 4 rotation risks. Barnes has horrific fixtures. Johnson, I just don't think is the best Spurs attacker. Garnacho's not nailed and doesn't have great fixtures over the next 2. He's got Spurs and Villa. I don't want to put you off. Like, I love the fact that I like Savio as a pick. Garnacho, I'm tempted by myself on wildcard. I don't like the Barnes and Johnson picks massively. That's where I would change. But other than that, if you're asking what the problem is, there's no real problem. But I just think there are small things associated with all of your players there. Why did Mbermo's price go up 2 times in 1 week? He's brought in by a lot of managers. Sadly. I like your jacket, Ross, where it's from. Thank you. It's from Urban Outfitters. It's my favourite store. If you want nice clothing, Urban Outfitters. It's very expensive, but it's nice. Well, how long we got to just under an hour until the deadline. Concert or Robinson? I'd start Concert, Claudette. By the way, if you're wondering on the captaincy poll, 60% are captaining Haaland, 25% Salah, 11% Saka, and 4% other. As I always say, the poll is normally skewed towards what I'm doing, because obviously you're sat here watching me, your team might be inspired based on mine, and you trust my opinion. So actually, a more reasonable percentage is, it looks like, actually I ran a captaincy poll, didn't I? Let me show you on Twitter. Because on Twitter, I know I have people following me, but it gets around to a wider audience. So I feel like the captaincy poll on Twitter is probably slightly more indicative of what people are doing. Where is my captaincy poll? There it is. It was 2 days ago, to be fair. But we've got 57% on Haaland, 19.2% Saka, 19.4% Salah, and then 3.5% other. So basically, most people will captain Haaland if they own him. And then probably those that don't have Haaland, or a few others, are going to choose between Saka and Salah. And that seems fairly split between the two. And then you've got a few rogue people going for the likes of Palmer, Watkins, etc. Havertz, maybe. Team news. No team news for anyone yet. Actually, at the time of me recording this. At the time of me recording this, why did I say that? At the time of right now. I'm so used to saying that in my videos. It's just a habit, you know. Let me have a quick scroll through Twitter and just double check. No one's tagged me in anything or anything like that. I think we start to normally get team news like half an hour before the deadline. So I think you've got a little bit of time. I would probably, my advice to you, especially if you're on a wild card, but even if you're not, maybe you're using your transfers and you're just waiting. Like, have contingency plans. Like, I've got in my head what I'm going to do if Jota's out. Not if Jota's out, but if I get a leak that Jota doesn't start. You should have a leak. You should have what you would do if Raya is leaked to either be with the squad, not be with the squad. If we get a leak that someone, like, just have contingency plans. Like, have drafts ready. Or, like, for example, Rico Lewis. If you've got Rico Lewis in your draft now and we find out he's on the bench, would that change your draft? Like, I would spend the next half an hour before we are likely going to start getting team news just thinking about, like, what do I do if X, Y, Z happens? That would be my advice, always on a wild card. Isak's not starting, by the way. Yeah, I did see one account that's been somewhat reliable in the past said that Isak's not starting, but I'm sure it might not have been them, but I'm sure someone with a similar handle got something wrong before, so I didn't want to read it out because I wasn't sure. But yeah, there is an account, a Newcastle account, that's suggesting Isak doesn't start. Apparently Murphy starts, if anyone's still somehow got him. Salah, but spelled slightly different. Salah. I don't know how you pronounce it, sorry. Says, Game Week 6 wildcard. Team is Flecken, Gabriel, Trent, Aina, Mbermo, Saka, Semenyo, Rogers, Calvert-Lewin, Watkins, Haaland captain. A bench of Sells, Savio, Colwill, Mikalenko. What a ridiculous team. That is insane. I guess you don't have Luis Diaz is the only real omission there. Other than that, I'm going to give that a big like 9.5 out of 10. I love that team. Literally nothing I would change other than, obviously, Luis Diaz would be nice to have, but you can't own everyone. Really, really love that team. Even the bench is super strong. Yeah, big fan. Connor says, wildcard in Game Week 7, 1 free transfer, Solanke to Havertz for a 1 week punt. I'll just keep Solanke. You have to remember that 1 week punts don't exist in the same format now because you can carry transfers through the wildcard. So if you don't use your transfer this week, you'd go into Game Week 8 with 2 free transfers. That feels a strong position. Like, I'm not that convinced that Havertz is a significantly better option than Solanke. Would I prefer to have Havertz to Solanke this week? Yes. But do I think that it will definitely outscore him? There's a world in which Solanke gets a couple of chances and converts them against United. So, yeah. Aziz with a massive super chat says, hey Ross, hello, thank you very much. 1, Flecken, Collins, Palmer, Rogers. First 2 subs, Greaves and Fass. 2, Flecken, Gvardiol, Semenyo, Havertz. First 2 subs, Rogers and Greaves. 3, Raya, Lewis, Semenyo, Watkins. First 2 subs, Dibbling and Greaves. Which draft depending on Raya news? Yeah, if we get news that Raya's with the squad, Aziz, I think I like 3 the most. And if we don't, I think 2. So I would say, in order of what I like the most, 3, 2, 1. But if we don't get that Ryan news, maybe you don't take the risk and you just go for number 2 instead. I really like that final combination with Lewis, Semenyo, and Watkins. Yeah, that would be my favourite. And thank you for the really generous super chat. Marcus says, start Rogers or Smith Rowe. I'd start Rogers personally. Don't think I dare go for Raya on my wildcard. Was thinking Edison now for City and long fixture. Good long fixture run. What are your thoughts? I love Edison as a pick. I would just wait, though, because we might get information that Raya is with the squad, or if he is going to start. Like, they're not the early kickoff, but they play at 3, so we might get some Arsenal news. If we don't, then yeah, I probably wouldn't take the risk, and I'd just go for Edison. Is it stupid to captain Salah this week? No, I'm doing it. And even if you've got Haaland and Salah, I would argue that with Wolves' issues at the moment, you could argue it's a slightly better fixture for Salah, so I don't mind it. I do think if I had Haaland and Salah, though, I'd probably give the armband to Haaland, personally. Isak, Pedro, and Meniz, 2 free transfers and 2.2 in the bank. Isak to Havertz, and either play Meniz or Robinson, or Isak, Meniz to Wood and Havertz. Yeah, I would do Isak and Meniz to Wood and Havertz. I'd get rid of those 2. They're just not great at them. Wow, that was a loud beep. I would do Isak and Meniz to Wood and Havertz. They're just not options you want to have long-term, Lucian. Carl says, hi, Ross. Hello, Carl. Thank you for being a member. He says, Sanchez, Trent, Kanate, Bednarak, Eze, Palmer, Semenyo, Saka, Rogers, Haaland, Jackson. Thoughts? Firstly, is it a wild card? I don't know. I don't know how much you have in the bank, and I don't know how many free transfers you have. So all of that would be useful. If it is a wild card, I'm not sure I'd have Kanate. I would probably want some more Man City in there, and I would want Mbermo. If it's not a wild card, the key place that you're probably missing is an Arsenal defender, Mbermo, and outside of that, there's not much. So yeah, maybe something like Mbermo coming in this week or next week, and maybe looking to move to an Arsenal defender. Would you start Konsa or Aina? I would start Konsa. If I've got Salah and Haaland, who would you captain? Yeah, so I think I'd still captain Haaland, as I said, but I understand why you would be tempted to captain Salah, and I certainly don't mind it. Start Greaves or Harwood Bellis? I'd probably start Greaves. Slightly more attacking threat, I think, playing for a slightly better defence, and I think both probably concede anyway, so Greaves. My team is Raya, Robinson, Porro, Gabriel, Smith Rowe, Palmer, Salah, Saka, Watkins, Mateta, Wood. Bench is Rogers, Johnson, Hall. I have my wild card. Okay, so you've got Raya. Could be fine. Porro, Gabriel, fine. Even Robinson's okay. Smith Rowe, Palmer, Salah, Saka, Watkins, Mateta, Wood. I mean, you don't really need to do anything on that team, especially as you've got Rogers on the bench. I would be tempted to maybe play Rogers ahead of Mateta. Would I? Mateta might still be on pens. Maybe not. I don't think you need the wild card right now. And I equally don't think you... I mean, Haaland's the major omission. So, Lauren, as long as you're happy going without Haaland, then I think this is a strong team. Maybe look to wild card next week, though, because you probably want to try and squeeze Haaland in. Finnis says, wildcard of Flecken, Porro, Trent, Gabriel, Rogers, Diaz, Mbermo, Saka, Jackson, Solanke, Haaland. Very nice. Yeah, strong team. Fabianski, Chowdhury, Bellis, Greaves. Is the bench too weak? Sorry, I didn't see that last bit. Yes. That bench is far too weak for me. Significantly too weak. Especially as you're already starting Rogers in your starting 11 every week. I don't think you need to do much. I think even if it's getting Dibbling in there, or even if it's getting Mikalenko, like you don't need to free up loads of funds, but changing Chowdhury and Harwood Bellis to Dibbling and Mikalenko would just make that such a stronger draft. So yeah, I would somehow find the money. It would probably be Pedro Porro, making way to upgrade the bench. Chill22 says, hey Ross, Son to Salah/Saka. Yeah, I'd probably actually go. I'd go Salah. I'd prefer Salah to Saka, honestly, still. Most people will disagree with that. It depends what you're planning long term as well, because that Saka gives you a lot more free funds to move around. So Saka, if you've got long term plans that need funding, otherwise I'd be tempted by Salah. Hi Ross, cheers from Norway. Wishing you a smashing Saturday. Enjoy your weekend. You put a smile on thousands of people's faces every day. GGMU. Ah, thank you. I hope you have a fantastic weekend as well. It's very, very kind of you. Lucian says, Isaac, Pedro, Moniz, 2 free transfers and 2... I think I answered that one, Lucian. Did you just super chat the same thing? Oh, should have said wildcard next week. Oh, okay. Ooh, wildcard next week. I'd still be tempted. At the very least, Isaac to Havertz. Whether or not you do Moniz... I would maybe do, actually. I would do Isaac to Havertz and play Robinson. And save a transfer. That's what I would do, Lucian, if you're wildcarding next week. JK17 says, for Verbruggen, White, Trent, Guardiola, Robertson, Eze, Bruno, Gordon, Nelly, Rogers, Haaland, Neto, Anderson, Moniz, and Vinicius. On the bench, would you wildcard? Fantasy Football Hub wants 4 transfers. I don't know that I won't wildcard this week, I don't think. But you do need to probably look at targeting some Arsenal. So Arsenal, if you can manage to squeeze an Arsenal asset in there somewhere, I would be tempted to do that. I know you've got White, but I don't even know if White's going to start. And I'd want an Arsenal attacker. Yeah, I don't know how much money you've got in the bank. I don't know how much free transfers you have. I don't know what your wildcard strategy is and when you want a wildcard. But it doesn't need a wildcard, but you're getting very close to probably needing one personally. I feel like wildcarding this late, like deciding to wildcard today is just a nightmare because you've missed every price change. So you're gaining no real advantage in terms of value this week. I feel like you have to make a decision on wildcard, ideally on a Saturday night, but at the latest Sunday. Like, because at that point you've already missed loads of price changes, and it's just the more you delay it, the less value you're getting from it. Hey, if no news, got Edison, Gab, Lewis, Trent, Greaves and Mikolenko on the bench. Cool. And Burmo, Saka, Rogers, Semenyo, Diaz, Haaland, Havertz, and then Rao. On wildcard, 0.6. What are your thoughts? I prefer many other forwards to Raul Jimenez just because of the fixtures and the minutes. Like, Moniz will surely still start the odd game. I would go for Calvert-Lewin or Wood instead of Raul. But other than that, I think it's a very strong team, Starksy. Really like it. Raj Mott says, should I get Neto as my second keeper? Safe bet? No, it's a waste of an Arsenal spot. I understand why. Like, if you've got Raya and Neto, you've got the Arsenal goalkeeper regardless. It's just such a waste, though, because as soon as Raya is available, which could even be this weekend, you've then just wasted an Arsenal position in your team. So, no, I wouldn't do that. Padrag says, sorry for butchering your name, by the way, I'm sure I did. Wildcard of Raya, Trent, Gabriel, Konsa, Diaz, Rogers, Semenyo, Saka, Mbermo, Haaland, Jackson. Yeah, Jackson's a nice cheeky pick. I like the fact you've got Rogers and Konsa. They've got a good fixture this week. Bench of Flecken, Lewis, Greaves, Lancashire, Salah out. Yeah, Salah out doesn't feel great, but at the same time, you've got to have Haaland. You can't go without Haaland now. And if you also want Saka, Trent, Gabriel, and an Arsenal defender of some kind as well, it's difficult to squeeze Salah in. Like, I want to keep Salah, but it's going to be very, very difficult. What have you sent in the chat, Curly? Let's have a look. Oh, okay. So apparently, let me send a message to someone. I'm gonna inquire and send messages. I'm trying to find out about David Raya for you. Hey, you beautiful egg. How are you and the missus? We're doing well, thanks. We're off to Manchester this weekend. Like, straight after the stream, Sally. I'm going to have to dip because we've got the train to get. But, yeah, we're doing well, thank you. On wildcard, Solanke and save 0.7 or Havertz. I'd go Havertz. Attack with Havertz and then move to Solanke soon. You don't have to have Solanke right now. Your team looks great. -8 for Wood, Saka in for injured Pedro and Salah. I wouldn't make the Salah move. I would just sell João Pedro to someone. I wouldn't take a -4 to remove Salah this week. Yeah, I've sent a DM to someone, and I will let you know. I'll keep you updated. Sorry if I go silent. It's because I'm trying to read at the same time as talking, and that doesn't work very well. Selling Salah is wild. I agree with that, to be honest. Who is Jota being replaced with? I'm probably not going to replace Jota with anyone. I'm probably going to keep Jota, unless we get news that he's not going to start in the next 40 minutes or so. No, I wouldn't be taking a -4 to remove Jota unless you know something. Why are you going to Manchester, lad? So Manchester United have invited me to watch the Spurs game in a very, very bougie box. Because if you don't know, I've partnered with Man United this season for the launch of their fantasy football game. So yeah, they've invited me to Old Trafford, which is insane. Like there's like a 5-course meal. Like who has a 5-course meal at a football game? They want us to arrive like 3 hours before kickoff for this bougie meal and stuff. So yeah, it's insane. So we're spending the weekend in Manchester, which is really cool. Anyway, back to FPL. Lewis or Porro? Probably Lewis, in all honesty. But I do really like Porro. I think Porro's going under the radar on wildcard. Just because this fixture he's playing against United away. If Porro had a slightly better fixture this week, I guarantee more people would have him. That's really cool, man. Well done. Thank you. I appreciate that, Tim. Boona said, no way, mate. Drop me a message. I'm at the game tomorrow for 1:30 in a box as well. I don't know if you're trolling or not, but you are a Spurs fan, Boona, so you might be going. If you actually are, drop me a message and I'll say hello. But if you're trolling, then go away. Right, where was I? Robbie, hi Ross. Bit unrelated, but have you ever played the draft mode in FPL? I have. Probably not as seriously as I'd want to. I don't play regular FPL, but loving watching your videos. Your content is helpful. I'm glad that my videos are still helpful for draft. I played last year, and I did enjoy it, but I just always forget. Like, I'm such a busy guy with everything that I'm doing in my life, but also even with FPL, like, I'm always creating content. Like, I just miss the deadlines, and I feel like as soon as you start missing the deadlines, it's just a bit dead. And also, like, Haaland ruined it last year, and like, there was a spell where Palmer, like someone had Palmer and Haaland, I think, in our draft. And it's just like, if a couple of players go monstrous, it's just very tricky. And also, like, you need players when you're playing draft mode that want to trade. Otherwise, you're just getting free agents all the time. Like, the best part about draft is offering players and trading. And again, in the league last year, no one accepted any of my trade offers, even when they were fair. So yeah, I feel like you need a really good group of people to enjoy draft. And if you have that group, it's so fun. Lucas says, I have Raya, Robinson, Kukureya, Pinnock, Mikalenko, Robertson. It's a different defence, but I don't actually mind it. Smith Rowe, Rogers, Saka, Salah, Haaland. Hey, you got Saka, Salah, Haaland. Nice. Bench of Sells, Vardy, Elanga, Delap. Should I wildcard to get Trent and an Arsenal City defender? That is not a wildcard team in a trillion years. It's a really nice team, Lucas. You don't. I mean, next week, could you wildcard? Absolutely, to restructure, get that City defence in place. But this week is a perfectly acceptable team. I wouldn't be wildcarding it. Zeus says Edison, Trent, Gabriel, Konsa, Madison, Diaz, Saka, Rogers, Semenyo, Watkins, Haaland, bench of Stewart, Tuanzebe, Keane. I know the bench is weak. It's a lovely team, like truly unbelievable team. But yeah, I wouldn't go into I wouldn't in a million years go in with a bench of Stewart, Tuanzebe, and Keane. But if you're happy with that, go for it. I do just question is going for Mbermo instead of Madison just to allow you to get Mikalenko instead of Tuanzebe. Is that worth the move? Like, I would want Mbermo in there personally. And I think then that gives you a little bit more funds to play with. As much as I like Madison, by the way. Sorry, I'm just reading to try and find out any early team news. Hopefully we get something, even if it's around Man City or Liverpool, or probably less likely to be Liverpool given they play later, or Arsenal. Anything would be nice. Hi Ross, Eze to Mbermo, Savio, Semenyo, or stick with Eze? I would just stick with Eze personally, but like I'm an Eze fanboy. He's got everything that I would want from an asset, other than maybe not penalties now. But I still really think I believe in Eze as an option. But like if you were to tell me you're selling Eze, it's like yeah, fair. If you're choosing between Mbermo, Savio, Semenyo, it's got to be Mbermo for me. I think if you've got the funds to do it. Bob says Wood and Palmer or Watkins and Luis Diaz. Watkins and Luis Diaz. Emerson says, hey, Henderson, Guardiola, Trent, Porro, Saka, Salah, Smith Rowe, Jota, Eze, Wood, Watkins. Got 3 free transfers and the wild card. What transfers or just wild card? Robinson, Pedro Porro, Barco on the bench. You've got Saka, you've got Salah, you've got Watkins. That's a great team. I would either roll the free transfer or if you want Salah this week, if you want Haaland this week, just shift the funds around. But I would honestly roll the free transfer and I would wild card next week. You've got a very similar team to me. It doesn't need a wild card this week, unless you're desperate to get Haaland, of course. Sent a super chat earlier, Ross. Also, good morning. Did you? Did I miss it? Let me have a look. Oh, sorry. I somehow missed that. Got a Salah, Haaland, Saka draft with Trent. Gabriel, Mbermo, Semenyo, and Wood. We'll have 2 free transfers next week too. Sound good? Bench is weak, but yeah. I mean, it sounds unbelievable, but if the bench is like completely bare minimum, then I don't like it. But yeah, a draft with all of those players in sounds unreal. But not at the expense of having no bench, because it's just going to cause you issues in the future. The amount of times this season, already on 2 or 3 occasions, I've needed my first sub. So, like, you will need your bench. Absolutely. Raya and Solanke or Edison and Havertz. If we get news that Raya is with the squad and starting, which we don't have anything yet, I would say Raya and Solanke. Otherwise, maybe just go for Edison and Havertz. Darcy says, Eze to Savio -4 if we find out he starts. No Haaland. Not for me. I wouldn't even do that for free, let alone take a hit to remove Eze for Savio. I do really like Savio, by the way, and I might have him on my wildcard next week, but I wouldn't do it. Is leaked _FPL legit? No, I think I've blocked that person. Okay. So, Arsenal, someone that is very reliable with Arsenal news, said that he has been told that Raya is with the squad now this morning. But he's hoping to have a proper update soon. So we might get an update before the deadline at 11. This guy said that he's been told that Raya's now with the squad. So I would wait for now, honestly. I think that maybe it's worth the risk now. But let's see. Let's see. Obviously, stick with the stream for the next half an hour and we'll find out. But as of right now, yeah, that's... Sorry, I wanted to look at leaked FPL. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I blocked leaked _FPL. I just want to check that is the correct account that I have blocked. Yeah, I've blocked that account. So leaked _FPL is not reliable. I've blocked them. I've actually had an argument with them on Twitter because they tried gaslighting me into saying that I was having a go at them when all they do is provide correct news. They just delete their incorrect tweets. So yeah, if you scroll through their timeline, they're only correct because they delete the tweet as soon as they get it wrong. It's not a reliable account. Absolutely not. I'm not saying that they won't be right, but they're not... they're just guessing. Like, they've tweeted that Gvardiol, Gundogan, and Rico Lewis start. I would also believe that. It's just a guess, though, isn't it? So, yeah. Anyway, they're not a reliable account. Hey, Ross, Maniz for Havertz or Jackson? I prefer Havertz for the next 2, I think. Ever get any early Brentford news? Not really, Luke, sadly. Sorry. No, very, very unlikely. Diaz or Maddison on wildcard? I'd probably go for Diaz for the next couple and then probably Maddison after that. FPL scoped and Claude at exactly the same time said even a broken clock is right twice a day. Exactly. Will says, hi Ross, Raya, Munoz, Trent Robinson, Saka, Eze, Jota, Smith Rowe, Bailey, Isaac, Haaland, João Pedro. 3 free transfers with 0.5 in the bank. Wildcard next week. No bench. Priority transfers. Yeah, I would probably... No bench. Probably Bailey, Isak, and João Pedro are all issues there. Maybe Isak and João Pedro to Havertz and... I mean, whoever you want, really. Calvert-Lewin, Wood, whoever you think is going to be better this week. Maybe you could even take out Bailey. Like Bailey, Isak, João Pedro to Semenyo, Havertz, and Chris Wood are 3 brilliant transfers. I wouldn't mind those at all, Will. But if you're wildcarding next week, it also feels crazy to use 3 free transfers before a wildcard. In all honesty, mate, I know it's a bit late, but I'd wildcard your team this week. You know? Like, I would just wildcard. Like, that's a team that could do with a wildcard, really. So I would be tempted to wildcard this week. But it's a bit late. You've only got half an hour. So, yeah. You should pin any City team news. I will if we get some. But as of right now, there is no City team news that's reliable anyway. Is this the final team, Rossi boy? Yeah, I think so, mate. I think so. It could go horribly wrong again. I know I've got no no Haaland. I'm ready for that. You know, I've had it for 5 weeks in a row. If it happens, it happens. Yeah, it's not like I don't expect it at this stage. But if Haaland only gets 1 goal or less, there is a world in which Haaland doesn't score every bloody week. Then I am really happy with my team because I fancy my other players to do very well. Obviously, I'm still going against Mbeumo, Havertz, Semenyo. But for me, I then have Watkins, Jota, Eze. Like, these are all good options that I've got instead. So, yeah, I'm happy with my team. You've got just over half an hour until the deadline as my camera decides to pack itself in. But, yeah, make sure you're getting your team sorted roughly. If I get any early team news in the next half an hour, which is probably quite likely, I will share that with you. I'm also still DMing that Arsenal contact to see if he's got any more team news. But, yeah, he has confirmed that it looks like Raya is with the squad. Whether that means he's going to start or not, I've got no idea. They might not risk him, potentially, if it is a genuine injury. Or it might have just been Arteta being Arteta the entire time, and maybe he's never had a serious injury. I don't know. It's very difficult to try and know with Arteta, isn't it? Edison ill? Who said that? Or are you just making that up? If so, that's not ideal, is it? Because that would have been people's alternative to Raya. I've only seen one person say that in the chat. Football London has Raya starting. Interesting. Milenkovic or 8 Nuri on wildcard? I'd probably go Milenkovic. This is the thing. Like, Arsenal do have a very good alternative in Neto. Like, he's really not bad as a backup. Sticking with Raya instead of a -4. Dunk or Greaves? Dunk. And yeah, I don't mind the idea. How reliable is the Isak news? I think he'll miss out before I even saw the news. And this account is a Newcastle fan. I don't think they're an FPL account. So I see no reason why they would make up fake news. But we saw it last week. Someone made up loads of fake news about Jota. Do you remember? And then they tweeted saying, haha, I had the community on strings. So people are weirdos that just want attention. But I would say I don't expect Isak to start. But I don't know. Also, it's not a great fixture for him regardless. So I wouldn't mind selling him. Yeah, exactly. But Eddie Howe does lie. Should I wildcard to get Haaland? The new team would be Raya, Lewis, Gab, Trent, Ola Aina, Mbeumo, Salah, Diaz with Haaland, Calvert-Lewin and Vardy. Bench equals 0. We have the same team as now. If you've got the same team as me, I wouldn't wildcard it, hence why I'm not wildcarding. But it's only like if you would have an enjoyable weekend just having a Haaland, then go for it. I absolutely don't mind it. What I don't like with your team though is I don't like Vardy this week, and I don't like that you've got 0 bench. So I would sadly have to make a downgrade somewhere in order for you to be able to upgrade Vardy, or change Vardy to Wood and also upgrade the bench. Like that's too much of a threadbare squad for me. Law says, I hate having no Haaland points, but also don't want to have him. Lol, feels boring. No, I get it. It is boring. I'm gutted that Haaland's been this good. And not because I haven't got his points, but it ruins the game. It really does, because now everyone's got to have Haaland. And because everyone's got to have Haaland because he's been an absolute joke of a man. I was going to say, it's not even a man, a joke of a robot. It takes up so much of your budget that we're all forced into picking the same cheap players like Rodgers, Smith Rowe, Semenyo, because there are only so many good cheap assets. If Haaland had got 5 or 6 goals in 5 games, well, then we're still having that conversation about, is Haaland really worth that money? Which would have been such a more enjoyable conversation than just get Haaland, bruv, which is sadly the truth. Like, that's what you've got to do. It's gutting. It really is. And again, not just because I don't have the points. It's just, this could have been such an interesting season if Haaland hadn't gone and put 10 goals in 5 games. It's a joke. It's such a shame. I really thought this was going to be the season where everything diverged and no one's one team was the same, but We're all forced to pick Haaland, which then makes the rest of the players very, very similar, sadly. So, yeah, it's a shame, but it is what it is. Bench Rico Lewis or Welbeck? I'd start Welbs. Welbs has been really good. I really do like Welbeck, and I think that Brighton will score, but that is a close one. Jota and Porro or Diaz and Udogi? Diaz and someone other than Udogi. I don't love the Udogi pick, so I would go Diaz and another defender. I wouldn't go Jota now, personally. Love the content. Really motivates me to stick with my players that I may have moved on. Thank you. Yeah, I am somewhat of a patient person, and I don't knee-jerk massively, so maybe to my own detriment, to be fair. Haaland and Jackson hopefully do it again for me this week. Oh, yeah. Haaland and Jackson will smash it. It's a really nice pairing. PSV says, more wildcard dilemmas. Raya, Solanke, Trent, and Lewis. Or Flecken, Havertz, Robertson, and Gvardiol. I much prefer Raya, Solanke, Trent, and Lewis. But only if Raya's available, right? But yeah, Raya, Solanke, Trent, and Lewis for me is a stronger combination. Start Gvardiol or Ola Aina? I'd start Gvardiol. Just get Haaland, bruv. Yeah, I know. The amount of just get Haaland. It's so boring on every video I upload. Nothing more in terms of team news, which is strange. Seems eerily quiet, doesn't it? Seems eerily quiet. Just scrolling through Twitter, seeing if I can see anything. Can you do 10 to? Just because it sometimes comes a lot quicker, yeah. Curly says news. Ross doesn't jerk massively. I don't. Psych! Oh no, everything's frozen. Should I leave Edison or swap him for Allison? I like Edison. If Raya's out for one game week, he'd be a great differential in game week 7. Yeah, if he's confirmed out for this week, which we're probably not going to get news about, and if people don't go for him, yeah, for game week 7 wildcarders, Raya could end up being more of a differential than we thought. Pedro on the bench, 3 free transfers. Pedro to DCL, question mark. Yeah, like that. And bench Smith Rowe or Rodgers for DCL. Next week, I'm planning on doing the Haaland Salah switch. I would just start Smith Rowe and Rodgers. Yeah, no, I would just start Smith Rowe and Rodgers. I don't think you need to make the DCL move this week. Start those two. Henderson, Gabriel, Porro, Trent, Salah, Rodgers, Saka, Mateta, Watkins, Wood. A bench of Smith Rowe, Robinson, Johnson. Do I take Salah and Mateta out for Haaland and Semenyo? 2 free transfers, 1.5 in the bank. Depends how much you want Haaland, Jake. I don't think Haaland is that much better than Salah on paper this week. I know that's famous last words. Salah will probably score 2 points and Haaland scores 17. But on paper, I don't think you can sit there and say that Haaland is a massively better option than Salah this week. So I wouldn't make the move. I don't think it's worth the 2 transfers now. However, if you're not wildcarding next week, longer term, you're going to want to have Haaland. So I guess why not do it this week? So my answer to you is, if you're wildcarding next week, Jake, I wouldn't do it. If you're not wildcarding next week, then yes, I would make the moves. Anasuki says, hi Ross, wildcard team of Kepa, Gabriel, Trent, Konsa, Diaz, Semenyo, Martinelli, Mbeumo, Havertz, Watkins, Haaland, Turner, Rodgers, Keane, Lewis. Any changes you would make? I don't love Kepa. I feel like there are better picks than Kepa. Even though he's got 2 good fixtures coming up, I think there are better picks. And I'm not sure about Martinelli's minutes long term, but I like the idea of punting on him in the short term. I would, of course, have Saka in there as well. But in terms of, I don't know if I want to make it what I would do. It's fine. I've got no issues with that as a team. Yeah, really nice. I just think Martinelli, Kepa probably wouldn't be my favourite picks there. But yeah, nice. I really like it. Chris says, play one of Ruben Diaz, Luka Dean, or Gusto. Luka Dean, I don't know if he's going to start. I'd start Gusto from those 3, and then Smith Rowe or Welbeck. I'd start Smith Rowe ahead of Welbeck this week. Although, Welbeck's probably on pens. I'd start Welbeck because of the pens. But we don't know that he's on pens, but he should be on pens in the absence of João Pedro. Not that we're getting many penalties this season, by the way. Barely had any. It's been a bit of a nightmare for those of us that loaded up on loads of penalty takers. Sharif says, wildcard active, starting 11 of Haaland, Raul Jimenez, Salah, Palmer, Martinelli, Rodgers, Smith Rowe, Konsa, Canate, Gabriel, Sanchez, bench of Haaland, Bellis, Greaves, Vardy, Flecken. Okay. There's a few things I don't like, but again, I don't want to make it just my draft, but I don't like the Canate pick massively, given that the fixtures are turning for Liverpool. Martinelli is a minutes risk, and I think Raul Jimenez, I think there are better forwards. I'm not saying Jimenez won't do well, because he's a proper goal scorer, isn't he? But is Jimenez in my top 3 or 4 favourite forwards? No. I mean, you've got Vardy and Jimenez. Like, for me, I'd rather have Calvert-Lewin and Wood as my 2 forwards. But I like the fact you've got Salah in there. I like the fact you've got Palmer in there. I like the fact you've got Haaland in there. Like, it's a very unique draft, and I like that. So don't feel the need to go different just because of me, but those are the positions where I would change it around. Hi, Ross. Wildcard thoughts. Sells, Muric, Gabriel, Aina, Trent, Mikalenko, Greaves, and Burmo, Saka, Semenyo, Diaz, Dibbling, Calvert-Lewin, Havertz, Haaland. Yeah, cracking. Cracking draft. I even like the Sells and Muric combo. It's not too bad. Yeah, like a 9.5 out of 10. It's just a really nice team. Really no issues with that at all. Blicky94. Good day, mate. Good day, Mr. Martin. I have an okay start with 500k rank, and I'm satisfied with my team. I still have the wild card to use in any future game week. Should I go chasing and captain Saka, or should I play it safe with Haaland? I would completely ignore your rank. I would completely ignore safety differential, and I would just, who do you think is better at Saka and Haaland? I'd captain them. Okay, Connor's just tweeted something. Okay, Raya is with the squad. There's a video. Let me just... So I'll get back to answering your questions in a second. Let me show you. Here it is. Are you going to be able to see that? Let me mute it. Is Raya going to come out? Apparently there's a video. Raya's with the squad. I'm waiting for... Unless he was right at the front. I didn't see him, though. Was he right at the start? I'm just watching this. I'm just going to watch this entire video, and he was going to be right at the start, wasn't he? Oh, there he is. Okay, yeah, David Raya's with the squad. Again, does he start? Maybe he's not risk. Maybe it is Neto. Maybe he's just there to be with the team. A lot of managers do like players just being there with the squad, given the morale, obviously making sure that you're with the team and stuff like that. So this doesn't tell us whether he starts. But what this probably does tell me is it's not like a serious injury, probably. So I would be willing to risk it with Raya, but I don't want to be responsible if he doesn't start and play. Hopefully that's clear. At least we get some sort of clarity on the situation, I guess, a little bit. AI generated. No, it's not an AI generated video. It's clearly filmed on an iPhone. This is the thing. AI is going to get to such a point where we don't believe anything anymore, isn't it? It's scary. Cam816 says, is this a mad wildcard game week 7? Raya, Porro, Trent, Gabriel, Foden, Madders, Mbermo, Saka, Solanke, Watkins, Jackson, Lewis, Greaves, Rogers, bench. No Salah and Haaland is very fun, but gets smashed in rank, isn't it? It's a beautiful draft. A lot of the players that you're looking at there, Foden, Maddison, Solanke, like they're all players I'm interested in my wild card. But yeah, I can't see going without Haaland isn't fun for game week 7 to 10. I don't see the fun in that given the fixtures. Like it's different. Like I was willing to take the risk from game week 1 to 5, went 1 to 6 because of the fixtures. They weren't bad for City, but 7 onwards the fixtures are a joke. I don't think I'd be having much fun going without Haaland, but it is a nice draft. By the way, if you've got just under 20 minutes until the deadline, Daniel says, want to swap João Pedro for Woods, Calvert-Lewin, Duran. What do you think? I think Woods and Calvert-Lewin. I wouldn't go Duran because he's still not starting. So unless you think Duran's going to start, I'd go for Woods or Calvert-Lewin. I would prefer Calvert-Lewin to Wood. Same team except Calvert-Lewin and Rogers. I still have Gordon, Isak. Got to switch Isak to Calvert-Lewin, leaving Gordon. Why do we wait with wildcard to Haaland, Salah, or do it? So why are we waiting and not wildcarding? I just think Salah's fine this week, and I think my team is fine this week. And if you've got the same team as me, your team is also looking pretty good this week. See, I just don't feel like this is the week to remove my players, is why I'm not wildcarding. Carl says, thoughts on Fleckham, Henderson, Gabriel, Gvardiol, Robinson, Mikalenko, Harwood Bellis, Eze, Semenyo, Salah. Palmer, Rogers, Wood, Havertz, Watkins, not on wildcard. To be honest, it looks fairly close to a wildcard. The only issue is you've got no Haaland. I still think that's a very strong team, though. There's no major transfer that I see you desperately need to make there. I know you've not got Saka, but you've got Salah. You could do Palmer to Saka if you think that's a massive upgrade, but I don't necessarily think it is. Yeah, I think it's a nice team, in all honesty. Ross, please can you get Andy Martin on the podcast? We've already spoken about that. He has been invited. He's just very busy, and he doesn't have any annual leave. I record on a Monday. And because I record on a Monday, it's very difficult to get people that work and don't live very close. Yeah, I'm just going to tweet it because people are joining and saying it. So Raya has been pictured. Raya has been seen with the squad at the hotel today. This does not mean he starts, just that he is with the squad. I'm going to pin that in the chat so that if anyone's joining, they can do with the information what they please. Okay, so at least we know he's, like I say, like that might make you just feel comfortable enough to just say, I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to have Raya. And if he doesn't play this week, I probably have him from next week onwards. Or you might still prefer to just go for a slightly safer option, like go for a Havertz instead. Current front seven is Mbeumo, Eze, Salah, Minte, Isaac, Haaland, Welbeck. Should I take a -8 to get Duran and Luis Diaz to match your 310? No, I wouldn't do that at all. I think your front line's fine, especially Duran. I wouldn't bring in Duran for a hit. Luis Diaz, I can understand why you might want, but I would probably just do Minte to another cheap player if Minte's the issue for you. Or what is probably slightly better is just Isaac to Havertz. Is probably the best move there for your team. By the way, I'm struggling to get through the super chats, and there's only 15 minutes left, so I would advise not super chatting anymore because otherwise I probably won't get through to answering it. And if you do, I apologise, but that is your prior warning. Good morning, SK says Sanchez, Aina, Lewis, Mazraoui, Smith Rowe, Saka, Mbeumo, Rogers, Salah, Calvert-Lewin, Haaland. Great team. Great team. Don't know why you look sad. You got a sad emoji. It's a great team. I would be going for Haaland captain. If you've got Haaland, I'd captain Haaland. I like Salah and Saka and Watkins, but not for me. Not for me. Wildcard, best defender for less than 5.5. Canate, Walker, Romero, Udogi. None of the above. I don't like any of those particularly. I would just go all the way to a 4.5 and bank the change. Or go for a Rico Lewis if you've not got Rico Lewis. Yeah. For me, I don't like any of those massively. Why do you prefer Salah over Saka for captaincy? I just think Salah's a better asset. And Wolves have got lots of issues at the back defensively. But I just think if Salah and Saka are ever close for me, I'll always back Salah because he's got more goal threat. Saka's very creative. He does have goal threat himself, but Salah's always got more goal threat for me. He's a proper goal scorer. Toby says a wildcard of Flecken Akanji, Gabriel Aina, Luis Diaz, Mbeumo, Saka, Semenyo, Haaland, Jackson, Havertz. Do I swap Havertz and Fabianski to Wood and Raya? I don't think so. Like, I think either of those combos are fine. If we get, like, Raya's with the squad, so you could go Wood and Raya, but I think Havertz and Fabianski's fine because then you've got Flecken, right? It depends. I think longer term, Wood and Raya is the better combo. Beyond the next 2-3 weeks, I prefer Wood and Raya. But if you're asking me what I prefer, like, now for the next two, Havertz has got such high upside, all right? P. Fred says, play Robinson or do Isaac to Watkins Solanke for a -4. I'd be very tempted to do Isaac to Watkins if you can afford it. I would. It goes against what I normally say, but I'd be very tempted to do that -4. Wildcard of Pickford, Gabriel, Saliba, Trent, Semenyo, Saka, Rogers, Mbeumo, DCL, Watkins and Haaland. Thoughts on the team and Watkins as a differential captain? Team is wonderful. Really like it. A few different picks in there, which is good. Do I like Watkins captain? I do really like it, but I still think Haaland, if you've got him, is the stand-up captaincy option. I mean, look at what he's been doing recently. It's a joke. Like, the man is unbelievable. Do we have any City team news? Nothing at the moment, which surprises me. I'm trying to keep an eye out for it whilst answering your questions and also doing like scrolling and stuff. But yeah, I haven't seen any City team news at the moment. Yeah, Luke has just tweeted that he hasn't seen any City team leaks so far, and he thinks that it's very difficult to try and predict the City defence this week. Yeah, I'm not sure. Right. Trying to help people, help the stream. It's too many things to think about. Wildcard is Edison, Aina, Gabriel, Konsa, Palmer, Mbeumo, Saka, Rogers, Wood, Haaland, Havertz. Bench of Winks, Lewis, Fabianski and Greaves. Feel like I'm missing Liverpool. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Having 0 Liverpool on a wild card is even with their fixtures, it doesn't feel good. Like they're arguably one of the best. Like one of the, I would say they're probably the best team in the league for FPL options. Not in terms of their actual team, but they've got so many good FPL options. I know they're expensive, but I'd want one Liverpool. I really would. But the team is very nice, man. I can understand why you've gone without because you've got such a strong team now. But yeah, I'd be tempted. Isaac Havertz for a -4. Yes. Yeah, I'd do it. Hi, Ross. Hope you're well. Bench Rodgers or Wood? I'd bench Rodgers because Wood is on penalties and playing at home. Why do you prefer Salah over Saka for captaincy? I answered that one. Have you asked again? I just think Salah's just a better asset. But sorry if you didn't hear me last time I said that or if the stream cut out. But yeah, same question, same answer. Would you rather Raya and Winks or Pickford and Rodgers? Pickford and Rodgers. I'd rather the squad depth, and I don't think Raya is going to continue at the rate that we've seen. Like, I think he'll stop making as many saves. He'll still have the clean sheets, but he won't be getting like 9 and 10s every week, you wouldn't imagine. Leicester has asked, Raya, Trent, Porro, Robinson, Son, Eze, Jota, Salah, Rodgers, Watkins and Havertz. Good enough squad for this week. Was planning to wildcard next week. Thanks. That is an absolutely brilliant squad for this week. I mean, it's very similar to mine, and obviously I've got no desire to wildcard, because I think you're absolutely fine getting away with that squad. Sorry, Chunk's messaging me this morning with Raya and his team, and I told him Raya's not with the squad. And then he was like, okay, so he's just sent me a draft without Raya. And I was just like, Raya's now with the squad, but I'm trying to stream, mate, so I can't do much more. Right. Where was I? You have got, just as a countdown, just over 10 minutes until the deadline. I think we could start to see it get a little bit crashy if we get more team leaks. So I would think about your moves and maybe just getting your team in a position where you're close at least. Adam says, captain Salah, Saka or Palmer. I think Salah or Saka. I wouldn't go Palmer. Also, I have Haaland. Everyone in Mini League is going to captain him. I want to be different. Which way would you go? I wouldn't go different for the sake of being different. If you think Haaland's the best captain, captain Haaland, because the other possibility is that you don't captain Haaland, he smashes it, and then you fall behind. So I would just captain who you think will get the most points. But out of Salah, Saka, and Palmer, I would prefer Salah. Onana, Fabianski, Trent, Gabriel, Saliba, Milenkovic, Greaves, Saka, Mbeumo, Eze, Tavernier, McNeil, Haaland, Jimenez, Solanke. So many people have Raul Jimenez. I don't mind it. He scores goals, but what do you think? Again, I would prefer Calvert-Lewin or Wood to Jimenez. I would prefer Semenyo to Tavernier, and I would prefer a different keeper to Onana. But United have defensively been a bit better this season. A decent run of fixtures. He makes saves, and Tavernier's attacking threat has been decent. Do you know what? I'm not going to try and talk you out of those 3 or 4 different picks because otherwise it's just building the same squad for everyone. I actually really don't mind that wildcard draft. Really nice, mate. Very nice, and a few different picks in there, which I'm not going to complain about. Palmer, Evanilson, or Jackson Diaz. Jackson Diaz. Wildcard 2, Raya, Lewis, Gabriel, Trent, Mikalenko, Mbeumo, Semenyo, Luis Diaz, Saka, Haaland, Calvert-Lewin, bench of Rodgers, Wood, Greaves, no Salah. I'd prefer... Yeah, well, don't start 4 at the back first. You'd start Rodgers and Wood ahead of Mikalenko, wouldn't you? Right, so don't play that 4 at the back formation. It's up to you. I mean, these are all such fine margins. If you think Salah's going to pop off this week, don't sell Salah on a wild card. If you think he's not, then obviously Haaland is better. It's just about when you make that move, right? I'm not sat here saying that Salah is a better asset than Haaland. I just felt like I could do one more week. You know? Mackenzie says, hope you smash it this week with all of the bad luck so far. I'm another one on wildcard this week, probably saving it till 12 personally. Thank you, mate. Yeah, I have got a lot of bad luck, but I've also made some bad decisions. So I could definitely do with a big week. I need it. I need it a lot. Mavididi is an option alongside Semenyo. I do still worry that Mavididi wasn't starting games at the start of the season, but he looks a little bit more likely to start now. I still think there are probably better assets than Mavididi, but he's good for a cheaper price, right? If you're going for like a Mavididi or a McNeil, I don't mind the idea of Mavididi. Dylan says wildcard of Flecken, Aina, Trent, Gabriel, Mikalenko, Greaves, Saka, Diaz, Mbeumo, Semenyo, Rodgers, Havertz, Haaland, Wood. Yeah, it's like that is the exact template 11. And I don't mean that in a rude way. I just mean, yeah, it's very, very strong. That's what everyone will be going for. So no issues there. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much. Replacement for Vardy, 1.1 in the bank. Got Haaland and Watkins. Probably Calvert-Lewin or Wood. Semenyo or Ahmad? Semenyo. Is Foden starting? We've actually still got no Man City team news, which I'm shocked by. I don't know if they've somehow managed to keep the leaks a little bit more hush-hush, potentially. I don't know how they would have done that, because before there were so many people leaking, but... Yeah, I'm not seeing any Man City team leaks, to be honest. Tony just tweeted that Haaland starts. If you wanted any... Oh, Rico starts. Here we go. Rico Lewis starts. I mean, that's not good for me. It's not good for me because I don't own him, but it's good for people on Wildcard. Sorry if my cam's a bit laggy. My computer's struggling a little bit, but my audio should be still coming through loud and clear. It's because as soon as I start to do stuff where I'm like on Twitter, it's a nightmare. Rico Lewis starts as per FPL Tony. If you're new to my streams, firstly, make sure you subscribe. But also, FPL Tony is very, very reliable. So Rico Lewis starts, Haaland starts. There you go. 2 pieces of early team news. I'll keep an eye on Tony's Twitter now if he's tweeting stuff out. Yeah, so if you've just joined, Lewis starts, Haaland starts. Lewis starts, Haaland starts. And also, David Raya has been seen with the squad. That is all we've got in terms of early team news. That is all we've got. Sorry, guys. My computer just completely froze then. I need to get a new one, really. Expensive times. Hi, Russ. Is it worth taking a -4 to take out João Pedro for a sub-7-7 striker, perhaps Nico or Solanke? Midfield is Eze, Salah, Smith Rowe, Rodgers, and Burmo. Well, I mean, if you're having to start João Pedro and you've got no cover, yes. If you've got cover for João Pedro, then no. I can't see your entire team, but I would probably lean towards saying yes if you've got no cover, and I would be very tempted by Jackson, for sure. Smith Rowe versus Semenyo, and who would you start, Smith Rowe or Rodgers? I prefer Semenyo over the next 2, but I prefer Smith Rowe long term. And this week I would start Rodgers ahead of Smith Rowe. Mikalenko and Aina with Calvert-Lewin, or Aina Colwell with Vardy. I would say Mikalenko and Aina with Calvert-Lewin is a slightly better combo for me. Start Ahmad or Rico. I'd honestly start Rico Lewis. I think Rico Lewis is due a big points haul. FPL Tony says Lewis starts. Yep. I saw that. I don't think we've got anything else at the moment. If we get anything else in the next 5 minutes, I'll try. I'm just searching through Twitter now to see if we get anything. So you see someone tweeted, I know I feel better once Pickle releases a team screenshot.
It's been done.
I can't see any other team news, guys. Sadly, I thought we were going to get a lot more than this. Maybe Liverpool, City. Nothing at the moment. I sold Lewis this week. Why'd you do that? Good luck to my wildcarders. Big love, Chunks. Good luck as well. It's a very nice team you've got. I'll show your team after the deadline. Maybe actually, I'm not staying around the deadline after the deadline. But yeah, it's a very nice team, mate. Good luck. Why is everyone off of Vardy? Well, he's got Leicester. He's got Arsenal this week. And then beyond that, I just don't know that his minutes are as secure. His data's not been particularly good this season. He is getting older as well. Why does someone keep saying Ortega starts? Are they just trolling? If you're trolling, you're going to get blocked from the stream because it's the same person and I've got no... And someone's saying Jota doesn't start. I'm going to block you. Sorry. Because you're doing it without a source and you're the only person. So bye. Ross, I changed Conser for Lewis. Respect. Yeah, I like Lewis. Yeah, now we know that Lewis is going to start. I respect it.
I didn't hear that because someone said they were gonna. Oh, the order's been picked up.
Cool. Thank you. Ageist, Ross. I'm not being ageist. I just like you don't really want a 38-year-old that's got a bad injury record and is not going to start every game probably. So, will Raya play? Raya is with the squad, but we saw last season. Do you remember Saka was with the Arsenal squad and he didn't even feature? So just because someone's with the squad doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to start. But yeah, I probably would imagine that if he is with the squad, he probably will start. But listen, if you go for Gabriel, Saliba, or Havertz instead of Raya, they're all just as good. It's not like Raya's going to get a 10-pointer every single week. Finalise your team, Ross. It is finalised. I'm not making any transfers this week. I got in Strand Larson for a bit of FPL fun. I like Strand Larson. Wish me luck. Great stream once again. Thank you very much, Flapjack. I appreciate it. Hi, Ross. Solanke or Jackson for the next few weeks? I think Solanke is probably the slightly better pick. I'd say Solanke over Jackson just about. Only also because Solanke is better long term. I think over the next 2 weeks, I expect Solanke and Jackson to be very similar. But from Game Week 8 onwards, you'll want Solanke. So why not just go for Solanke now? You know? I also think Solanke's a slightly better finisher than Jackson. Do keepers get auto-subbed in if Raya doesn't start? Yes, if you've got a backup keeper and Raya doesn't play. Not if he doesn't start. If he just doesn't feature at all, then yeah. Haaland or Salah captain? I think you've got to go Haaland at the moment. I think you've got to go Haaland at the moment. I don't know why people are being such trolls in the chat, but just ignore anyone in the chat, to be honest. Unless they're quoting with a source, just ignore what they're saying. There are people just trolling with early team news. Like, there are people saying that people don't start the play on Sunday. Like, how on earth have you got any idea? I guess I should just refresh my team and make sure that it is locked in. You've got less than a minute until the deadline, and the site is a little bit laggy. So make sure you get your teams locked in. I really just need Jota to start. I've got a feeling he's not going to. There's no news on City other than Porro and other than Haaland and Lewis both start. Let me just double check FPL Tony. But you've got less than a minute till the deadline, so it's a bit late. Nah, Rico, Lewis, and Haaland is the only team news, and then Raya's with the squad. Sadly, that's all we have. I hoped for more, but that's the situation we're at. And with less than a minute till the deadline, that's probably it. Make sure you get your teams locked in. Yeah, so again, Haaland starts, Lewis starts, Raya's with the squad. That's it. Get your teams locked in. Get your captaincy sorted. Get your bench sorted. Vice captain. And that is it. That is the deadline. We are locked. Locked and loaded. Thank you all very much for being here. I'm sadly going to have to dip immediately because we're going to have a really quick bit of food and then I'm off to Manchester this weekend to watch Man United versus Spurs. And we're travelling up this afternoon. So I'm very sorry. You know I love staying up behind after the deadline. It's my favourite part of the stream, actually. But sadly, it's going to have to be a no-go for today. Also, fingers crossed, hopefully, my differential team, which it is now, smashes it. Like, no one owns the likes of Jota and Watkins, really. So fingers crossed, even Eze's lowly owned. So hopefully this team does well. If Haaland blanks, you can only imagine how happy I'd be. If Haaland gets one goal, I'm delighted. At least it's the early kickoff, because if he scores a hat-trick, I get the plaster ripped off immediately, and then I can hopefully get green arrows from here. So thank you very much for being here. Enjoy your weekend, and I will catch you probably on Monday for my first wildcard draft, because I do think I'm going to activate it in Game Week 7. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you soon, guys. See you later.